Are you hearing that? All
Yes.
right. Is that sounding
Yes.
better? Does that sound like a microphone?
It's sounding, yes, a very radio-ish
Oh,
sound.
okay. Good.
It's good. Good.
Okay. I think we sorted it. I went from a $3,000 interface to a $300 interface, and now we're fine. So
That's the first lesson.
yeah, that's right.
Always downgrade.
Uh-huh.
When you have technological issues, always downgrade.
Always downgrade. That's right. It's always the simple solution.
Nice. Are
Well,
you, by
how
the
you
way,
doing?
using?
Go ahead.
I'm good. I'm good. No, I was going to
Okay.
ask about the because you're using an SM7. Do you have like one of those boxes you put in between that
I do. I
is?
have a Cloudlifter. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Do you find it actually just for selfish reasons? Does it help significantly or?
Do anything. It does crank it a bunch. Because
Mm,
otherwise I remember I haven't unplugged it from this thing in like 5 years. So uh I do know when I wasn't using it, I really had to juice it to get what I wanted. But
yeah.
yeah, I couldn't tell you now. Who
Yeah.
knows?
No, I'm sure because so many people, you know,
I swear by it.
say
Yeah. Are you are
yeah.
you are you implying that the audio gear community might be selling snake oil from time to time?
No, they wouldn't do that.
They would
Nobody would
never
do
do
that
that. They would
in any
never.
industry, especially this one.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, it's your morning, man. How are you?
I'm good. I woke up at 3:30. Uh,
Woo,
it's my second day in a row doing that,
man.
and yeah, but it's good. You get a lot of stuff done. Although I will be sleeping the next night pretty well, I presume, and for
Okay.
a long time,
What's
hopefully.
your what's your bedtime then? Do you have
Uh,
a consistent one?
I mean, it's been shifting now because our kid is he's like a year and a half now.
Oh, okay. You're
So
you're way in it. Yeah, you're
yeah. So I mean,
I,
before, like when he was still like a baby, it would be I would
anytime.
go to sleep at 8, pretty much like 8
Yeah,
p.m. and then I would wake up at 5.
that
So
that
that
sounds
would
right.
yeah. But
Yeah.
now it's been shifting because he goes to bed probably an hour later. So about 7 p.m. he falls asleep, and then usually and maybe 2 hours after that I go. But it's
Man.
yeah, it's been shifting a bit more.
I have two, a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, so I know that routine well. I know the
Yeah,
chaos it brings into your life.
yeah, I'm sure. I'm
So
sure.
much respect. Yes. Way to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's
Mm-mm.
hasn't been easy. I mean, especially the beginning was a bit tough with all the heart attacks and stuff like that. But
Oh, yeah, I don't know about that stuff.
well, yeah. I mean, he was born in August, like late August, and then
Mhm.
late September. I basically short story is I've had some mysterious health issues for years, and then basically all the sleep deprivation because I was already like I knew that if I lost my sleep, I would probably be in trouble, but I didn't know how much trouble. But basically, yeah, in late September, I started having weird pains here, sort of under my
Mhm.
collarbone, and turns out they were heart attacks, and then they had to do, I think it's called angioplasty. So
Uh-huh.
they basically went into the arteries, and I had one complete blockage, almost
Oh,
complete
wow.
blockage there. So they had to open it up, and I was basically in pretty, rough shape for the next half year. So it was
Man,
pretty tough, but
that's
yeah,
wicked.
yeah, it's weird. They don't know why, because this is a really like I was 32 at the time,
Mhm.
so it's very strange to have it this early.
This early, yeah.
Yeah.
My family has a big history of heart problems. My grandfather's had 4, um, and so it's definitely in my genes. And thankfully I haven't had one, but I was having. You're talking about sleep deprivation about 2.5 years ago or three. I was having massive sleep deprivation, and then just it was like a cascade of health problems just started dropping on me, and um, it was a harrowing feeling. I'm sure that you had the. It sounds like you had a similar experience. Like it, without the sleep, it gets grim fast.
Yeah, yeah. And I knew that already from experience, like trying to be an entrepreneur and do stuff and wake up earlier, but I just feel the lack of sleep really, really heavy and really fast.
Mm,
So it's like I can't compromise on that. Um,
yeah,
yeah, but yeah,
that's
sleep
wild.
is important, but for me, it's like
Sleep's
surreal.
important.
To me, it's surreal to think about people who can just get by with like I don't know 6 hours or whatever.
Oh
Like
man.
it's not that
I
big of a
used
deal
to
for me.
though. It used to not be a big deal for me. It was like a lifestyle. I was proud of my 5 hours of sleep, and I could still function. And then at some point, I'm 38, so I'm a little older than you. But yeah, my body just said, nope,
Mm.
that's not going to work anymore.
Not
And
anymore.
yeah, you're going to have to start taking care of yourself. And I was like, oh
Oh
shoot.
God.
Well, and with kids, as I'm sure you well understand, like the amount of hours that you can commit to work and creativity are pretty limited, or at least have to be very specific. Whereas in my 20s and stuff, I was just frittering away time like it was nothing. And so I used to make up for it like by staying up later, when we as the kids were getting up, because once they went to bed, then it was like, oh sweet, I can get in like several hours of good work here, and then that has tapered off big time. So I used to be like 1 a.m., 2 a.m. pretty good because that would be like power hours. Um, but
Did
yeah,
you
brain
find
starts going.
yeah, but did you find that because I'm pretty sure I could do that as well, but the problem would
Mm,
be to kind of taper down so that you can calm down for sleep. So did you
same
find so that was an issue?
big issue. Yeah, because you're all lit up, right? You're just
Yeah,
like activated, and I get that when I come home from a show too. If I'm playing, it takes me a long time to come down.
I'm sure.
Um, and it's funny because it's not even. It won't even be like you know from drinking or anything like that. It's just like
All the
nerves just get
yeah,
buzzy
well, I
and
mean,
stuff.
the shows you do, all the lights, all the everything, like, it's a
Yeah,
huge show, so, I mean,
right. That's a lot
it's
of
meant to stimulate you, yeah.
stimulation. It's tons of stimulation. Yeah, it's funny because all I'm so calm in a lot of those things now because I've done them for so long. Like, so part of my brain's like, live TV, whatever. Yeah, it's fine. This is just play the songs. But there's another part of my body that all I can witness being uh, activated and stimulated. That's separate. It's like I think it's the logic brain and like the animal brain. With the logic brain, I can watch the animal brain be like, "Arr!" And my logic brain's like, everything's fine.
Yeah,
What's going on over there?
the the nervous system, I don't know if it's
Y-
like the sympathetic or parasympathetic, but basically all the the animal side of you is still lit
Lit
up.
up.
Yeah,
Totally. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's
And
one of the
I'll
things
come
I still struggle with
struggle.
because I find myself mentally pretty calm most of the time, but then just kind of wired up physically
Hmm.
otherwise. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. You seem very, I mean, I'm just getting to know you, Marcus, but yeah, you seem very even in in your videos and whatnot like that. So
yeah, I
yeah,
try to be.
when you
It's
hear that the brain is tickling, or the animal part is still anxious or lit up, it's good to note. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, for me, it's the all the unconscious physical stress that accumulates, or the physical stress response, because I can notice if I get stressed mentally very easily. Like I'm super
Mhm.
sensitive to that, which is why I need to have all of my stuff in good order pretty much all the time, because otherwise it just like if I have any issues with like relationships or anything like that, it eats me alive very quickly. But yeah, one of the things I've struggled with is because I love working out
Mhm.
a lot. It's a lot of fun, but it obviously um, gives you stress, and it accumulates. And even though I love working out, there's
Mhm.
still a kind of subconscious stress accumulation that physically, yeah, accumulates. And then I find it difficult to recover, even though everything I'm doing, I love. So that's kind of been one of my big issues for a long time, trying to, I don't know, de-stress from stress that I'm really not feeling other than physically,
Oh,
which is
I understand that very well, man. That is like the topic du jour with me and my counselor. So yeah, these I get this I love that you're working out. That working out kind of saved my down spiral of insomnia and stuff. But I get these my throat will clamp down sometimes without reason, and it frustrates the heck out of me because externally, as you were saying, it's something you love. I'll be in a situation and I'll witness it, like with my whatever you call it, your what's the ego and the id, or but you can animal brain and let's call it logic brain for now. Yeah, my logical side's like everything's fine, everything's in hand, everybody's calm, everything's taken care of. Uh, Nothing about this situation s- would induce stress to my mind, but something somewhere is triggering it, you know. So I'm still unraveling that um, puzzle, but I I wonder, yeah, exercise I suppose could be one thing. I haven't considered that before, but
so what kind of,
certainly stress in relationships. That'll set it off big time. Yeah.
yeah. Well, I mean, so far my best theory has been that there's basically, I mean, you're obviously very creative, and I would presume you're also kind of like uh, from a nervous system standpoint, a sensitive person. I don't know in terms of like mentally, but when I say sensitivity in the context of being a creative, being an artist, it
Mhm.
means you're just, I mean, your nervous system is very um, uh, keen on, finding small changes and shifts and nuances, and then basically because of that, your whole body is very sensitively wired. So basically, you have an input coming in, you're going to
Mhm.
respond to that, uh, multiple times more sensitively than someone who isn't as sensitive. That's a horrible
That's
explanation,
interesting.
but
No, that
basically,
tracks.
I mean, I would, for me at least, it has been the case that I just need to be very mindful of the incoming uh, input,
Input.
yeah,
Mm.
and minimize it, frankly, and learn ways of controlling it. And
Got to turn down the gain somehow.
yeah, I got to do my gain staging better in my nervous
Yeah,
system.
we've got ribbon mics when most people have SM58s or something.
Yeah, exactly.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But so, I mean, maybe it is the case for you that it's simply even though what you do, even if your life is in order and everything is good, it might just be the case that you get too much stimulus, too much stressors, even when you love everything that you do or most of what you do.
Yeah,
So it becomes like just like a physical stress manifestation management problem,
I feel
or
that.
or challenge.
The exercise uh helped at least I didn't work out ever in my life until about 3 years ago, and then I went hard. lost a bunch of weight, and it solved a bunch of stuff, but in including sleep. So the aspect of exercise, I think it burned off a bunch of that extra stress, anxiety, um, which I'm glad for. But yeah, I need some other. I'm still developing other modes of dealing with that all that input.
Yeah,
I
decompress.
have a friend who,
Decompress.
yeah, I have a friend who suffers from a lot of that too. A fellow creative composer, and he's got all these apps that automatically dim his phone and limit contact. It even limits him from going to like news channels and like Reddit. Oh man, that was during the pandemic. I was just like scrolling on Reddit forever, and yeah, it just winds you up. Um, he's big on colors in your studio and lights being down at 8 p.m. Stuff that I should start following, but those would be some other things to pursue, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think definitely those help. And it seems also like you said, about the having your relationships in order and all that stuff. That's a big one. But yeah, I've been dimming lights for, I don't know, maybe about 2 years now, and
Mm.
being very conscious about light is super super important and all that stuff. And yeah, I mean, this is one of the worst things. If you don't
Oh,
manage,
yeah,
if you don't manage the use, it will just hijack your attention, and it's
it's
horrible
awful.
because it's throwing your focus all over the place, and we can't. It's no wonder that you get anxious if you're going from one context to another and another. You can't really. It's tough to build like solid um, state of mind if you have to jump from this disaster to this crisis or this short clip of, I don't know, murder or whatever, like a fight
Totally.
on the street or whatever else is, or an ad that annoys you.
Yeah.
You're going like back and forth. It's Nobody can stay sane in that sort
I
of
definitely witnessed that, all those I've gotten better at that because I didn't realize that until maybe the last year, like you were saying. Yeah, you look up something as a murder or a, car chase or an ad or something. And because my conscious brain was like, it's just the news. And then I noticed that because during the pandemic, we had a newborn born right at the top of the pandemic, so I was very panicky for a long time. You know, hard to keep the world safe as a father when everything is on shaky ground there. Um, but I would open up the news every morning just to like see, is the world ending? What state is the world in? Like, so it was the first thing I did every morning was like crack open the news, and I stopped doing that for a while, and I noticed a tangible difference in distraction and whatnot. I didn't it took me a while to realize that it was chipping away at my attention and also then my creativity essentially, right? So it's biting us in those unseen ways. So
yeah.
I'm sure I could do a lot more, but that was one of them for sure.
I mean, if it's one thing that I would suggest for people to drop for their mental health and their focus, if there's something you want to do, but you find it hard to find the time and the energy and the focus and the willpower, then just drop scrolling on social media. I'm not like, I love social media if you're using
Hmm.
it the right way, but we, if you're not mindful about it, you're just going to fall into the loops that they want you to fall into, and it
Totally.
just, spend time on the platform. But if I can ask you, you said that exercise helped you with insomnia. Was
Yes, I wouldn't even call it insomnia. I'd call it sleep deprivation. It was
Yeah,
so intense. It would be multiple days of zero sleep, uh, multiple times a week, and this persisted for 7 months, and it was just a system collapse. Um, and we tried uh, all sorts of pills, and like dosages that were just obscene, and nothing was working. So um it wasn't the pills that were. It didn't seem to be whatever the pills go after. Like they prescribed me trazodone, Ambien, and it just did nothing. It was like a whiff of wind. It was just pointless. I'd be sitting there awake, and my body would be drowsy from the meds, but my brain would just be full on, and I'd just be like, this is just a waste. What is happening? But yeah, exercise was one big piece of solving that for me. And I think it just burned off a lot of whatever that was, that reservoir of tension and angst, and like you said, sensitivity to all this input. Um,
So what form of exercise did you do? Was it
well, first,
cardiovascular or?
yeah, first I did. My wife's been doing them too. We have these hokey DVDs from the mid 2000s that we had of Jillian Michaels, and they're like, oh, they're just terrible. It's great. The music's so terrible, and it's all like pastel colors. And Jillian Michaels, she's the like she did The Biggest Loser and stuff. She's like Jersey girl, so she's got a
Oh yeah,
little. She'll bark at you a bit and keep you moving. Um, so I just started on those, and I started out with tiny weights, and it's hit stuff. And it's like a 25-minute thing, and I would do it 4 to 5 days a week. And yeah, kind of got addicted to it. Wouldn't allow myself to take a shower or eat lunch until I had accomplished that thing. And then slowly I ramped up the weights, and yeah, I lost 30 pounds off of that. Um,
nice.
and thanks. Yeah. Also at that, when the doc was trying to solve insomnia, there's a bunch of other health issues, but cholesterol was one that came up, and he wanted to prescribe me a cholesterol thing. And I was like,
Statin. Yeah.
yeah, statin. And I said, in my head, I was like, no, I'm too young for this. I need to shake some things up. I'm not taking a statin now. Like, having known that my grandfather's had 4 heart attacks, still alive. And my dad has, we all have guts genetically. And, yeah, history of heart disease for sure. My great grandfather died at, like 61 of a heart attack. So, um, I got really committed then and was like, okay, well, I'm going to go at this another way. And, yeah, exercise was a big one, and then changed diet to just crap tons of protein, cut out bread, uh, took the drinking way down. And my cholesterol plummeted after that. Whatever combination it was. The doc was impressed. He was like, "You did it. You did the thing that most people won't do. Most people just want the pill, but congrats, you took our advice and sorted it out the best way possible." So I'm pleased with that. My cholesterol's still low. Um, so
And how quickly did you see like an improvement in your sleep?
um, let's see. Well, some aspects were relational, and that some connections to friends after having the pandemic, where I think the isolation of pandemic and feeling alone with children, or alone as a family compared to everything else in the world. Getting reconnected to friends really helped turn that around quickly too. The sleep happened within like a month. I still took some sleep meds for a while, but they started working magically, and then I started weaning myself off because I wanted to get off of those. And so it was like I was 2 pills at night, and then like 1 pill, half a pill, and then eventually got down to a quarter of a pill. um, and I was also taking melatonin every night too. I got off of that too. Um, but that took longer. The whole taper probably took a year. But there's a pretty drastic change in I'd say a month or two from really kicking in the gears. Exercise, diet, connection, um, purpose. I think you're big on this stuff too, but I started reading a bunch of stoic stuff and get discipline stuff like I've seen in some of your videos, and just getting back to direction um, and purpose. I think was another piece of that puzzle.
Yeah. Well, it's usually a good idea, and I bring this up because somebody might be facing whatever they're going through in life, and they're wondering how long will it take to get back to normal or get to
Yeah,
something better, and it's usually reasonable to assume that however long it took for you to kind of decay into this situation is probably what you should expect at like a
to
similar
get back. Yeah,
yes. And that's not to say like you can very quickly see improvements in your situation, but if especially like for me, um this was probably I was probably, what would I say, maybe 24, 25 when I kind of got sick and tired of the crappy mental health that I had, and it
mm.
kind of became very clear to me that I'm either gonna like bullshit my way into my grave in terms of not confronting this thing, or I'm gonna do it now and I'm gonna do it properly and I'm gonna try and become a better person, build some actual character. Um, it's what was my I lost my train of thought here due to my low sleep,
No, that's all right.
which is
You're talking about the
ironic.
importance of mental health and how long it takes to
Yeah,
undo the damage.
yes. Thank you. So, yeah, basically, I mean, it took, I don't know, probably 2, 3 years to get to like a pretty level, decent place, and then I'd say probably another 2 to kind of elevate above that, but it takes time to change your brain. Like, you really need to be connecting those neural pathways and build new stuff in your brain
Yeah,
and let the old ones atrophy. And it's just like that's why I love all the parallels between working out and going to the gym and lifting weights. If you want to build muscle, you have to break it down, and
gotta
then
break it down. Yep,
you have to eat, you have to sleep, and then it's gonna slowly build upwards. But the mental side is exactly the same, probably maybe even harder. So if you're if you're really serious about improving, whatever situation you're in, you have to get to a mindset where you accept and acknowledge that it's okay, that it's going to take time, because that's also one of the big things people are so used to. They expect fast results, give me
yep.
the pill, give me this or that, and it's the same mindset that got you into that
Got you
trouble in
there.
the first
Yeah.
place. Yeah. So
For me, it was I'm never one for a quick solution, but similarly, similarly destructive and as useless. I'm just a I will force myself through uh, hell or high water in most situations, um, which most of the time was an asset, especially in my 20s and stuff in music or whatever. It was just like get the job done, whatever it takes, and then yeah, eventually that stopped working, and
well, it
it
probably worked when it came to music. I mean,
it did. It really would
you would pull
totally
from
did.
something else and put it somewhere else, and you would make that
Hmm.
sacrifice, but you had to
I
pay for it.
I had to pay for it, and my body was paying for it. Um, I didn't know that it was paying for it um, until it started screaming back at me in the form of massive insomnia and yeah, just it was like a all the systems were just like, nope, shutting down. And I was like, well, you guys have worked. It's been fine. What's the problem? Like,
Yeah.
I don't say
The
this was
problem
we
is
were going
you're
along.
getting older.
Yeah, that well, yeah, absolutely, and also all these other stressors that I was taking in stride, like 2 kids in a pandemic, which I think we're all still coming to terms, and probably will be for a long time, with the mental and physical toll that took on us in unique ways. I My counselor, which I had not, that was not a thing I did either, for forever before that, but I found value in that. He pointed out once, he was like listing the things in my life that are casual to me, but to most folks in a regular schedule, those would be huge stressors. And he was like, you should consider that when you're thinking about these things and trying to solve this anxiety. Because as I said before, like in my head, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's Madison Square Garden at midnight, whatever. Yeah, fine. This is regular. Live TV to millions, fine. Yeah,
Just a Friday.
just a Friday. Yeah, but yeah, it's a high stress input. It's a lot of input, as you said.
Yeah. Well, it's creative people tend to end up having these lives that are very drastic. Like we have super high highs, but then we have
Mm,
super low lows.
low lows. Yeah.
And creatives innately love that because what we tend to hate is the mundane, gray,
Oh boy.
tedious
Yep.
stuff. And they want to do everything to stay away from that. And in many cases, I think I wouldn't even say sort of subconsciously, maybe more consciously than we come to realize usually, but they create this drama in their life because
Mm, yeah.
they make decisions that lead to these kind of situations. And
Dramatic things.
yeah, then you wonder why your relationships aren't working or why your financial life is what it is. But
Hmm.
I, at least in my experience and observation, it's more of our making than
Oh, I
just our
agree. I would totally
circumstances.
agree. Yeah. If something gets too regular for a while, I'd throw a bomb on it. Just yeah,
Yeah,
let's shake this up. Um, my wife knows that I have about a week with relatives, and which we love visiting family, and they have more consistent lives. And yeah, after about so many days, I'm like, okay, I mean, I love these people, and this is great fun and nice and comfortable, but I gotta get back to the studio. I gotta get back to LA. I gotta get back to things happening in drastic ways.
yeah. Do you find that is your wife sort of temperamentally different to you or similar? And do you find that she sort of helps you balance out your personality and your temperament, or how does it?
We're still solving that puzzle
Yeah, well, I
as
mean,
we
fair enough. It probably will.
yeah,
It's an ongoing project for sure.
ongoing
But
project. Yeah, for sure. Um she yes. Um she likes the opposite of those things. Prefers the opposite of those things, and likes consistency and comfort, and no stress, no conflict, no, whereas I enjoy conflict. Like if we've been shorted on by some company or something, I love to get on the phone, you know, and hunt down my refund or whatever. I like to pick fights sometimes. Not with her, but with others, just to show the contrast. Um, so yeah, and then trying to figure out how to integrate those together uh, is our probably our core challenge, and the more we sort it out, the better it is. Because yeah, if there was two of me, it'd be intolerable. So it'd just be awful.
Yeah, not double worse, but exponentially like
Exponent,
worse.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, just going back to the time when you started having this insomnia and all these other issues. Was it uh, y- obviously there were you were going through these physical um, symptoms, etc., and probably as you touched on, much of that was also just coming from like the the stress and the intensity of whatever you were going through. But did you find that there were any and go into this and in as much of a detail in as much detail as you want or not in detail, but did you find any sort of mental aspects that you've come to realize contributed to that turmoil? Because we sort
To
of
the
touched on,
turmoil.
yeah, I mean,
Yes.
like, yes. So was it like, I presume you were intensively involved with, performing, etc. So that probably
Mhm.
um, played a role in that. But we
Yeah.
we didn't really touch on the did you go through stuff with like what was going on in your relationships, either professional or otherwise, or any
Well,
other
one
mental aspect?
one theme definitely was fear of this vast unknown, um, 'cause I mean, for all of us, things were so unknown there for a while, and my daughter was born right at the beginning, so the hospitals didn't even know how to handle it. I remember everybody was just afraid all the time, and this baby was brought into the world, and I'm supposed to be the protector and provider, and looking around at a world, and I'm sure this happens all the time to, people that are in war-torn countries and whatnot, to much greater degrees than whatever I've had to deal with, but I nonetheless, it was the outlook was bleak and fearful for me, I think, and I didn't realize how afraid, I guess, I was of that. One thing, uh, that I've thought as I've dealt with it is, like, back then, it was like, "No one's coming. There's no backup. No one's coming, and, no one's coming to save us," so no one's coming to save me or my family. But now, I can say the same things with confidence, uh, and from a totally different standpoint. No one's coming. There is no backup. No one's coming to save us. No one's coming to save me. So it's me, I have to save me. That's what I kinda that was a big change in mode for me. Um, and so that helped a lot. But yeah, reflecting back, it was fear and disconnection, I'd say.
Yeah. Well, it's basically the difference is experience and yeah, I mean, also experience from the standpoint of getting used to something. I mean, it sounds like that
Mhm.
was a new thing in your life, and
Yeah.
whenever we're facing anything new, fear is a normal response. It's you saying, "I don't know what that is," and it's a natural response to say, well, maybe that thing is threatening and maybe
Yeah.
that's not going to be good. But then time passed, you handled it, you managed it, and you built confidence and surety, and you understood that I can actually handle this,
Yeah.
which is a big part of growing with anything. Like anytime you start anything new, that is always the situation. The scale of it is going to be different. Like you said, if I find myself in war, that's going to be very different from wanting to start a new creative endeavor. Like
Mhm.
both can be fear inducing, and they basically model the same,
Stress response.
fundamental. Yes, that, but also the patterns of the unknown versus the known, the threats, they vary in degree, but the same elements sort of abstracted are still present.
Mm,
So, but yeah, I think that's a good good example of how we grow. But
yes.
you went through it, and now that's
Pass through
integrated.
it. It's in
Yeah,
my system. Yeah, it's totally integrated. I feel it. And there's experience. There was one thing I read. I kept it on my desktop. I pulled it up, but this is on the Art of Manliness webpage, which I enjoy from time to time. But it talks about 3 different modes. There's like the fragile mode where you suffer or break from volatility, and then there's resiliency, which is where you stay the same in volatility. And then there's the like anti-fragile mode, which is where you actually get stronger from volatility. And um, so I feel like I've passed through yeah, that gauntlet in a lot of ways and become resilient and uh endeavored to become anti-fragile in a way, to where when something goes wrong, as opposed to going, complain, going just going at it. And I've gotten exponentially better at that. Um which
were
it I enjoy. So I started taking even cold showers at one point last year, just to like build up that muscle as well, which was, is a small form of stress, and just stepping into it as opposed to being, fearful. But I mean, that is kind of going around the Instagram, podcast fitness sphere. But I really found a lot of benefits in it. And just a testament to myself of like, yeah, you're going to face this and do this. And then, that trickling down into other aspects of life. So.
yeah. No, it's really big, because if you if you know you're going to do something super hard every day, again, you're going to train the muscle of doing something hard every day. And
Mhm.
getting into a freezing cold shower is not easy if you don't do it. I mean, even if you do it, it's still not going to be easy. You
Yeah.
might have built the muscle of getting in there because you know the benefits of what it's going to do, and you know you can handle it, etc. But it's still hard. It doesn't the actual process of withstanding the cold doesn't
Yeah.
feel good.
Just sticking that first bit of skin in there. It's, yep. Okay.
Yeah,
We're going to do this.
yeah, yeah. And so I think if you and that the level of hardness, the level of difficulty in that is still far higher than what a lot of people go through in their day-to-day life, which is important because you sort of want to calibrate difficulty. Like you like in terms of, I might be going through something hard right now, but I could also be, like you said, I could be in the middle of a war, for example, which would be potentially a combination of the worst possible things a human can go through in life.
Yeah.
My difficulty here in the now with my business or whatever is nothing compared to imminent death of myself and my loved ones, and it's like,
Yes.
it's so going into that cold is going to calibrate difficulty for the day. It's like an anchor point for everything else, and it's super useful in that sort of a way. Did you, as you were going through this, like becoming more anti-fragile, was
Hmm.
there any sort of did you just sort of power through the process of it, or did you find any sort of key mindset uh, uh, or perspectives that helped you get through it?
Yeah. Definitely. I was reading a lot of books. Interestingly enough, I was uh part of a men's group that my cousin started called K4, which is now grown quite large, K4 Men. But I was in the initial cohort. He's in LA. He's 20 or so years older than me. He's an anthropologist, but um, he invited me. This is 2018, and he was like, "You should come out to this," and so we started on that, and it centers around, Jungian like psychology and um, stoicism and grit, and just also being kind of a men's meeting thing, which is now I feel like has become, now there's lots of this stuff out there, which I think is great. Um, interestingly enough, at the time, I was not able to like receive all the messages that I was hearing from the class until these like system failures um, around 2021 and
You mean like in
late
terms of
2021.
COVID or?
Yeah, and I mean in my body too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Where just everything was just seeming to crumble, and then all of a sudden I had a bunch of hardships and things that wisdom that I got from those classes kind of came back into force. And I reread the books too from it. There's Iron John by Robert Bly, which is like a men's rite of passage thing. I'll try not to get too into that. Two guys on a podcast talking about men's things. You know how that goes.
No,
But
I'm fine with it. I don't
yeah,
mind.
it's
I,
all
I
right.
love, I
I'm
love
fine
that.
with it too. It's just put it on Instagram.
Sure.
There was so it's and another book that goes with it is King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, which talks about male archetypes. And there was another one called Under Saturn's Shadow. They're all Jungian psychology stuff. And then uh, uh Jordan Peterson, which I would just put a disclaimer out halfway. I do not agree with about half of what he says, but the other half is just really speaks to me. I read his 12 Rules for Life, and I was like, yeah, this is great. um, so those are all very male centric books, but they spoke to whatever pieces I needed to set into motion in big ways. So just about purpose and focus and doing hard things. So that combined with all the exercise and kind of realigning my purpose with family and work led to a transformation for sure. That my friends definitely. I came
Notice.
back from a period, and they were like, "Whoa, what's
Yeah.
going
Who
on
the
with
heck are
you?
you?
Yeah, who are you?" And it's a good thing. It wasn't a bad thing. So I'm very pleased with it, and I keep pushing on it. And only good things have come from it. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
It's
thankful
it.
for that collapse, because without it, yeah, we needed to burn that old. Peterson says, burn that old dead wood away. But
Yeah.
kind of do a phoenix move and become not, get out of fragile, get to resilient, and then hopefully get to anti-fragile. So
Yeah. Well, that speaks to the. I usually call it the deep dark truth of human beings, which is that we only tend to change when we have to. I don't think
yes,
it needs to be that way, and we can change without having to. Well, I maybe I should kind of rephrase that, which is that you can create your own reason. Like you can create your own have to, basically.
hmm
But it has to be there. And
yeah, there
you
has
know,
to be some sort of impetus or some sort of. I mean, this
yeah,
is storytelling, right? At this as well, like with conflict or whatever. There's that. There has to be some sort of event or something, right, to push the characters into motion. Maybe I didn't.
yeah.
I don't want to derail what you were saying, but I think I'm tracking with you. So
Yeah, yeah. Well, there needs to be something pushing you into a direction. I think this is especially important with creative people because we tend to be so head in the clouds and romanticize things, and we like to spend time in our imagination, and we think we're going to do something just out of like whatever breeze, like pure. Maybe I'm not gonna.
Inspiration, yeah,
Yeah,
pure.
but the problem is things stay too ambiguous, and
Mhm.
in that sort of infinite pool of creativity, and and yeah, I mean, usually when people drastically change, it's because something traumatic happened, something drastic happened. Somebody died, or something happened to you, or you went through something quite drastic that made you wake up to the situation you're in, and
Yeah.
I hope it doesn't need to be the case for anyone to go through that to change, but unfortunately, it seems like the state we're currently in as human beings, that is required for most people. Now, I think
Yeah.
you can change. I think you can create those sort of conditions yourself, but it's so difficult that it's probably gonna first happen through that trauma, and then you kind of wake up to it, and then you realize, oh, maybe I'm not gonna wait around for the next 5 or 10 years for something else to happen, but rather I'm gonna take this, and I'm gonna take the lessons from that, and then start behaving as if there's that push
Yeah, as if
coming
there's a
to me.
conflict or a trauma or something. Yeah,
Yeah,
an impetus. Totally, yeah. I think, yeah, it was a mass disruption. Yeah, and unfortunately, yeah, most people require it. I certainly required it. Um, I think I could have coasted along on whatever I was doing if my body hadn't failed and there hadn't been a pandemic, uh, for quite a while, and then could have looked up and been like, "Oh, what the hell was I doing?" But thankfully, there was impetus for change. So um, I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for the wreckage.
yeah, yeah. Well, you tend to only see it in hindsight. Like once it's over,
Yeah,
you learn. You're like, okay, that was horrible, and at the time, I wish it went away. But since I went through it and I became something better, it's impossible to not, value that. And I think that's a
hmm
great sign, actually. Like, did you, if you look at your past, whatever you went through, if you're still seeing it um, as nothing but a negative, then that's a pretty good tell that you didn't grow as a result of that, because you
yeah,
still look at it and it's still traumatic and it's still negative. And I'm not saying, like, obviously the things you went through were negative, but now you see them as like a building block type of a thing.
absolutely. Um, I stuck it on my arm. um,
You did?
yeah, it says amor fati, which means love of fate.
Nice.
Which is
And is
Jungian, but or no, that's Nietzsche. Um, it's to want nothing different forward or backward, but to to simply love what is, not to suffer it, but to love it actually. And so that's my little reminder to love those hardships and love those things um, that were impetus for change.
yeah.
So
And that's the thing that makes you wake up to reality, because so many people live their lives in this kind of what if scenario. It's always like they're sort of living these parallel lines, the parallel lives, uh, and always wondering what if and looking at different options
yeah,
without really understanding, like, this is it. Like, embrace it and just be on this path. Don't wander off with your, uh, you know, imagination and thought
imagine it.
onto these
Right,
other paths, because they don't exist fundamentally.
they don't exist. Right, there's that. I can't remember who said it, but most men live lives of quiet desperation. Right, I'm sure you've heard that one
Yeah.
before. Yeah, just living in your mind of what ifs and could haves, and I mean, in my biz, I've definitely seen that people that have called it quits per se, or said f this after uh giving it their shot and being so angry and bitter, um which I that's hard, but all this angst and anger at the what ifs, and so I'm choosing to embrace. So, and
Yeah.
I love my life. I'm thankful for it. So,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you've met quite a few people because considering the place you're in right now, the things that you're doing, which we haven't touched on yet, but we'll come to that soon. This because the worst introduction ever. But you've probably seen quite a few people attempt to do what you do or something similar to what you've done, but
hmm
they've failed,
yeah,
or I should say they gave up. Um, I mean you obviously touched on one of the things, which is like this bitterness and resentment of expecting an outcome and not getting it, and then basically saying, "Well, fuck this," and
yeah.
blame, point fingers somewhere else. But is that like the biggest reason you've seen people quit, as far as you know, or are there some other key factors
That's
that
one aspect. I won't deny the economic aspects, which I am thankful for the opportunities I've been given. Um, I'm thankful that I had supportive parents that were able to support me and allow me to um, pursue music fully, as opposed to having to work as soon as I got out of a class. So uh, I'm super thankful for that. That I didn't have to go work at Starbucks, right after leaving class. I got to go home and create. Um, so just to acknowledge that. um, but yeah, gosh, I do feel like there's a lot of stuff in my career that's just dumb luck. But uh I can't I'm gonna butcher this quote, but somebody says, luck is essentially you have to be ready, when luck provides
opportunity
its chance.
finding, what luck is opportunity
You
finding,
get there. Yeah.
is like competence or um,
Competence plus
readiness,
opportunity. Yeah.
something like that.
Being ready, essentially, right. You follow me. Yeah. So I will give myself credit for that, for being ready when the situations came up, or at the very least when they came up, immediately running home and studying as hard as I could to BS my way into something, and then still, pursuing it. That's happened quite a bit where
Do you
somebody
have
said,
a do you have
"Can
a
you do this?" And I said, "Yeah, I can do that." And then I went home and had to figure out how to do that.
do you have an example of that
There
that you
was
want to disclose, because maybe you don't want everybody to know what you
yeah, there's
yes.
there was a scoring guy for gosh, I can't remember his name. This is like 2012. And he had met me on a gig as a keyboardist, and he had a he had a thing for a film about Thomas Edison that never got made, and there was a script and everything, and he was like, "Are you able to be my composer's assistant?" And I was just so excited at the potential of doing that, because I was just a gigging keyboardist like full time at that time, and so this avenue, I was like, "Yeah, I would love to do that," because I've always had that part of me that wants to do that, and there was an opportunity, and he was like, "Okay, send me some demos," and I was like, okay." So I got home from where we had spoken on this gig, and I spent the next 72 hours cranking out demos. I think I probably slept 8 hours the whole in those 3 days, but I did score studies. I ripped off some John Williams stuff and like reconfigured it. I went full in and turned it in, and he was, "This is amazing," he said, and the so the opportunity didn't pan out, but the growth that I had in that 3 days, like, it was a total shift change for me, um, because opportunities came up after that where I was ready, and if I hadn't, like, BS'd and totally been driven to do this, like we were talking about before, some conflict, some impetus to get my ass moving, um yeah, it really just forced me to get into it big time, and the growth that I had was huge. Another one that did pan out, sort of. Um, this was complicated, but um, I I just posted about it. About 10 years ago, I recorded with Avicii for on one of the biggest albums of the year, "Wake Me Up," and I recorded on that song, "Wake Me Up," and two others that made the album. But so I was working for Aloe Blacc at the time as a touring keyboardist, and he hit me up and he was like, "Do you want to come to this session with Avicii? He wants to do some recording." And I wasn't like listening to EDM or dance music at all then. And so I had like a week where I dove in head first and just consumed as much EDM as I possibly could, because I was like, I have to know what I'm talking about, know what I'm doing here. This was before he was like before he blew up and was huge. He had Levels had come out, which was his one song, but he didn't have an album out. So I like uh drowned in Dead Mouse albums and just went full in studying like all these subgenres of house and everything. Um, and so then when I came to the session, I was much better in hand and much more aware of like the scene a bit, because I'd just been playing like R&B for the last 2 years, not dance music at all. Ironically, he didn't want any of that for the session. Um, uh, he wanted like country music, so we recorded that, and that was a good opportunity. Um, Full of business drama, but that was a big important note. But ever since then, I've had this massive love for EDM, and it's like such a part of my identity and my like hybrid scoring chops and my synth programming and stuff. It was another like impetus, growth, left turn, um, change point in my life. So, um, yeah.
Yeah. And in that opportunity, it was like a lot of the time people can be, they say, "Oh, I can't do this thing," or "I shouldn't go for this opportunity because
Yeah.
that's not what I do." But oftentimes, especially with creatives, they're looking for different perspectives, which is what you probably brought to the table. You weren't
Yeah.
the handbook EDM guy who did everything, you know,
Right. Yeah. When I think about
traditional.
it, like he doesn't need me to do that. He's that. So, um, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
But I totally like, yeah, I jumped in head first and I'm grateful for it. So,
Yeah. But also those stories are excellent reminders of just like the human potential to grow is I don't think we've even gotten close to understanding the scope of that. Like
mm,
you can like in those 72 hours or in the Avicii case, whatever that was, you can really learn so fast if you have the right drives and the right
yeah.
pressure to make it happen. And not that I'm advocating people not sleeping for 3 days or
Right.
whatever, but it's a regardless, like doing that but in a more balanced way. Like let's say you book, you schedule the 8 hours or 9 hours or whatever it is that you work per day. If you were as efficient as you possibly could be,
Hmm.
what would that look like?
Right.
So you don't have to go super super hard, like do nothing but music for a week. But if you were to sort of disperse that and sort of schedule it in a sort of a
Schedule
more,
that drive.
yeah, schedule it in a more
Yeah.
lasting and reasonable way. I don't like, most people do not understand how efficient they can become.
Yeah.
And if you do it on a sort of a more daily, evenly dispersed way, you can go super fast. And I'm saying this to myself because I keep forgetting it. And it's very easy to become.
Oh, me too, man. But yeah, you're right. We could be so much more efficient. I'd submit we're probably way more efficient than we were. I mean, I know I am. I'm sure you are with kids. Um, yeah, the amount of time I just wasted dawdling around in my 20s, and now it's like, okay, I got 4 hours. Bam, got to get it, because the rest of this time is dinner with the kids or taking the kids to school. This is bedtime for them, like it's forced scheduling in a way. So forced
Yeah.
maturity.
But it's also tough because obviously having kids, if you're actually doing something with them, if you're actually involved, that's stuff, it's tough. And when once you do get some time for yourself, you're like, oh, I just want to relax and I want to like decompress.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the danger of it, because at times it can get pretty tedious because you're like, I do nothing but engage fully with everything that I do. And, but in that situation, it's important to schedule in the decompression as well. Like that's what I'm
That's what I'm still
advocating
working on.
for.
Yeah.
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 Me too. Me too. But it's like, so yeah, I mean, you absolutely need that. But I also want to be strategic about it because too much of it is not good either. And then you become, just somebody who lies on the couch and watches Netflix or whatever you
Yeah.
do. So there's a time and
Waste of
place for
time.
that. Yeah. Yeah. There's a time and place for that. But too much of it is waste of time, like you said. But maybe if we actually give people who don't know who you are an idea of who you are, and
Yeah.
this is already an hour into the conversation, but so basically, and this is pretty much summarized on your website, so people can
Go
go
for
there
it.
and check it out. But so you are a keyboardist, music producer, and sound designer. Um, Toured with Mariah Carey, Adam Lambert, Aloe Blacc, St. Vincent. And on these ones, you were the keyboardist, musical director, sound designer?
Mhm.
Or, yeah,
Yeah. So some variation of the three on all of
variations.
those.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
And now you're in the house band for American Idol.
Yeah.
And then
Seventh
you,
season this year.
seventh. Is that seventh? Yeah, for you.
For me. Yeah. I
How
think they're
many
on their
seasons?
22nd season. Yep.
That's quite a few. And yeah, as you mentioned, you have some co-writes, Avicii, Wake Me Up, Shame on Me, and then Flo Rida's Wobble and Can't Believe It. And then you've toured and performed with a bunch more artists, and then you've done tour sound design for Katy Perry, Kesha, Rita Ora, etc. And you've done sound designing and consultation for companies like Dave Smith Instruments, Novation Music, Strymon Effects, Moog Music. Moog? Yes?
Yep.
Not
That's right.
Moog. Moog.
Moog. Moog.
Moog.
Yeah.
And Pioneer DJ. And then you've scored some commercials for BMW, Chevrolet, and WWE, which must have been fun. That one, the last one.
Yeah. That's right. That's some walkout music for John Cena. That was a while ago. That was fun.
Oh man, that sounds like a
Back when he
fun.
was wrestling. Yeah. So, yeah.
Nice. So yeah, I mean, that's one heck of a CV. Uh, but just to maybe go back to your sort of origin story, um, and one of the reasons, like, I wanted to talk with you is because you have obviously like a world class level uh, capability in terms of being an instrumentalist, like being a keyboard player, that you're at a top level in that. But it's very clear that obviously you've done all these other things as well. But even just because I think I originally bumped into you through some of the Moog or Strymon demos, and it was
Okay.
evidently clear to me that you weren't just a great player, but you were very mindful of the sounds. You were very sort of, it was a very kind of responsive um, thing that you were doing, which was a tell to me that that you were actually a creative. Like there was so much creativity and um, awareness when it came to
Mhm.
what you did. That it's remarkable that you have this level of playing your instrument, but it's also supported by your taste and your awareness in terms of the creative aspects of music. So I think would you say that's like because a lot of the players that I know who are professional musicians, but they aren't I wouldn't say doing something creative at a top level. They're remarkable players, but that's pretty much what they do. They're instrumentalists. They play their instruments. But at the level you're at, do you think you can get by just being a great player in your instrument, or do you think you need to have that next level of creativity and this sort of a perhaps deeper understanding of I should say maybe the sensibility and awareness for creativity and sound, if that makes
Oh,
sense.
yeah, the latter for sure. Um, I I mean, in college, I was all about instrumentalists, as many music majors are. We're all about like the chops. But yeah, there was a shift in my joys to artistry and listening to good artists that weren't just blazing instrumentalists um, at that time, which I'm thankful for. um, because I was a big prog rock head for a while. Still love prog rock, but yeah, it was all about the chops for a while. Yeah, I don't think being an instrumentalist is enough unless because it's harder to make a living just as an instrumentalist. Excuse me. Um, nowadays, I'd say, and also that's like I don't listen to music for um instrumentalist, expertise. Really, I don't think most of us do. Um, the general public certainly doesn't. Um, so, um,
Yeah, it
I
tends to
think
be in the kind of niches, let's say some like more technical metal or like you said,
oh, yeah.
progressive rock is a big one on that. Like people are very impressed by the skill of playing super fast,
Yeah.
usually because that's what they're doing at a like a hobbyist semi pro
Right, yeah,
level.
that's what they're
They,
pursuing, which that's what I was doing in college, is I was trying to be the, Keith Emerson or whatever, so Jordan
yeah.
Rudess. Um, yeah, I mean, and funny enough, I mean, I listen to a lot of metal, but, like, I'm thinking about, yeah, the technicality, or the technical skill of some of these bands is incredible, but I'm not listening for that first. I'm listening for, like, the feeling and the emotion. Like, I love Meshuggah to death. I love Meshuggah. And they are ridiculously, technically skilled. But like it's the feeling of that I get from listening to them as art that gets me excited. Not just the ripping, because there's a billion rippers, but yeah, it's that combined like technical prowess with artistry, that like emotion, um especially when I'm working out, that, I just love, to use
Yeah,
them
there's
as an example.
like a
Or
super
like
fast.
Radiohead or something. Yeah, like Johnny Greenwood is like one of my favorite players in the world, but he's not a Pat Metheny or anything like that. He's very skilled, but I listen to him for his creativity and, the weird left turns he's gonna take. So, yeah, I'd say I definitely value the latter, and the the more I learned that and got away from college prog rock fusion, music major head, the better I got, and that's something that's hard to impart to younger people, I think. I didn't want to hear that when I was 20, you know. I didn't want to hear that, you know, it just yeah, you should probably just study Beatles songs instead of listening to Dream Theater, but you know, I still enjoy Dream Theater, but like, you know, this is that's gonna get you farther in the music biz and in life than this. So
Yeah. And it's super important because it's a different skill. Like you're doing a completely different thing. Like playing an instrument isn't innately creative. There's like
right,
it's
it's
just like
technical.
yeah, it's like welding or woodwork or do it like plumbing. You know the technical stuff of how to
Yeah.
make it happen. But just because you play something doesn't mean you're actually being creative with it, which is a super important thing to understand. And a lot of people are going to disagree with me because it's going to make them uncomfortable because
Yeah.
they have years and years of invested interest in telling themselves that I am a creative person, yet you've never written a song in your entire life. You know, maybe you've played your instrument for years and you like music, you love music, but you don't actually create anything. And it's super important to understand that because maybe you do want to be just a player. And I don't mean just a player, like it's not a matter of better or worse. These are just different
Yeah.
things. So if you
Yeah,
love
I follow you.
playing, you know, if you love it, then play. But
Then do that.
if
Yeah.
yeah, but if you like for someone like myself, I cannot not create. Like I have to be creating something. Otherwise I get mentally ill. Like I start becoming unwell. And
Yeah.
so it's these kind of things that I want people to become mindful of because you don't want to be aiming at the wrong thing.
Mhm.
And but yeah, I wanted to kind of bring this up because I wanted to understand whether at your level it's no longer enough to be just a great player. Like you need to bring something more to the table.
Oh,
You need to bring
absolutely.
creativity to the
Yeah.
table.
Absolutely. I know amazing players and um so many amazing players. I mean, we're spoiled in LA. I grew up in Oregon, and so players up there versus down here, yeah, it's a drastic difference. Because you know everybody's trying to work. But yeah, it's whatever that extra edge is. I'd say for everybody that I've worked with, that is the reason they get hired. Um, whether it's their ability to work with other people, um, their ability to contribute a sound or a vibe or a creativity to an out to a musical outfit, um, band, ensemble, whatever. Or like for example, so like American Idol, I'm not the best keyboardist in LA by a long shot, you know. Um, and um, but I'm not hired to be the best keyboardist for that gig. I'm hired because I work well with this team. Um, we work very efficiently, and under the leadership of Chris Pooley, he's the music director. He assembled the people, um, and they're all great players. But I would say that most of the reason that we're on there is because we work very well together. We work quickly together. We're all very kind. Um, we're all driven to um, do it very well. You know, it's not good enough if you're fumbling through. There's like an internal shame we all have that would, you know, makes us go home and like get it better. Um, as opposed to like, yeah, it'll be fine. So, um, as well as like, my music production and sound design aspects. But, yeah, I'm not hired to be an amazing keyboardist there. I'm hired to be an amazing team player, I'd say.
Yeah. Is that is it part of the band's responsibility to because a lot of the time a singer or yeah, a singer comes to you and they want to do a obviously a cover of another song. Is it is
Mm-hmm.
it your responsibility to do the new arrangement and the new sort of style for the cover, or does that come from somewhere else?
So there's in the music department for that there's two pieces of the team. There's the vocal coach slash accompanists, which are two people teams, and there's a few of those teams because there's so many contestants, especially at the beginning as it narrows down. So they work out the arrangements, and they actually do like lead sheet charts for us in the band, and then that gets passed to the band. Chris Pooley watches over this whole thing. He kind of execs all that, and then he plays in the band as well. And
What's his instrument?
he's a keyboardist and production guy, leader, but he plays organ on in the band that kind of glues everything together. And then I do keyboards and tracks, making tracks. We have a playback person, so I don't have to worry about playback systems. But so like I do the synths and the pianos and stuff. So yeah, the arrangements come to band, and then we execute them, whether they're like the record or somebody else's reference of a record. Like I want this ballad to sound like whatever Garth Brooks in. I can't think of an example right now. Or I want this to sound like Radiohead or something like that.
Yeah,
And it'll be like a Britney Spears tune or something. So you're trying to figure out that angle. So the accompanists and vocal coaches, they mold it there, and then it comes to us, and we figure out how to make that work, and then we do it on stage. So yeah, there's our playback person, Laura Escude. She's great. So I'll make the tracks at home, or Chris will make some tracks. If we need support tracks, like say there's synthy stuff that we just can't handle or needs to be in the box. A lot of auxiliary percussion, stuff like that, where I'll pour out my cinematic stuff, Cinesamples, Spitfire, things like that. Strings, things like that. And then when we do get string players for some of the moments, especially later on in the season when they want to doll up the production, then sometimes I do some of the string arrangements, or Chris will do one. So yeah.
nice. Yeah, I mean, what you touched on in terms of the social aspect, that's huge, because again, that might be something that a lot of people who would love to be in a position where you're at, they're aiming for that and becoming tremendous players. They also develop like a more of a productional sense and
Mm-hmm.
and etc. But then they might find that they don't actually have any people skills, and that they can't
Yeah.
really get along with other people. And that's what I've heard from especially being in your world, but I would presume being at the top of it, any field, like you have to have all of these different components at play, and you need to be at least past a certain threshold, because people don't suffer fools at your level. And also,
Absolutely.
and all the the budgets, everything involved, people don't have time to sort out your bullshit, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like you need to, like that needs
There's
to be,
money,
yeah. And
happening. There's money being spent quickly on a set like that.
yeah,
So
and
no
it's
drama.
difficult enough as it is. And the most difficult thing is if people are not jiving well, that becomes a huge issue. So that's certainly something you need to have in
Yeah.
order to make that work. Did you were you always good with people, or was it something you had to
Um,
develop?
Thinking back, I mean, I was pretty decent and sociable and careful, but I definitely am thinking of stories in my 20s now of where I was on tours and was definitely a prick. Um, in certain situations. Those are learning opportunities. I'm thankful for I've had some mentors along the way that have helped guide and mold me from the young 20 guy into I mean, I'm 38 now, so yeah, experience I think is a big part of it, which is I mean, everybody in the band's around my age and older, like 35 to 45 is or 35 to 50 because we're all seasoned. We've all toured our brains out before. We've all been on terrible gigs before. And we've all been on great gigs before. I think, yeah, that experience and that uh, molds those people skills. Um, I got the Mariah Carey gig right out of school when I went to Musicians Institute in Hollywood, and um, it was an audition. It was like I was I got it. I was referenced to it by Randy Jackson, who knew me from another gig, but I was pretty young out of school, and so it was a big gig, and I was nervous and probably spoke too much and everything. But Eric Daniels, who was the music director, I was on auxiliary keyboards. Eric Daniels was really great and helped shape me and tell me when to shut up and how to he taught me a lot of those people skills, politics especially, which on on a gig like that where you have to be careful working with um, strong personalities and big teams. um, you really have to figure out how to not be how to get what you need and not be an asshole about it. um, Not step out of your lane. um, so yeah, which I definitely did a whole lot when I first started there. But got whipped into shape. So
Do you
yeah
remember any kind of key pieces of advice that you got from one of these
um
mentors?
let's see. Yeah, staying in your lane. um Definitely like thinking about uh what you say to who. Um I was entirely too trusting when I was younger because I'm just a naive kid from a small town in Oregon. um and not everybody is on the level in the music biz. So um I I remember there was one time where one of the tech guys pulled me aside and out of a situation, and he just like pulled me out mid conversation, uh, where I was talking to some other people in the department, and he just kindly pulled me to the side and um, told me to just stop. He said, "Cut it out." He said, "Just you need to keep that to yourself, and you need to watch your behavior and stuff." So I'm thankful for that. There's all those little moments like that. I think we all have those kinds of reckoning moments when we're younger on tours. So
Yeah.
I can't think of any
Humility.
specifics. Yeah, humility. It was a lesson in humility. Um, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean
I'm
there
sure that that
a
can
lot
be
of
one
her
of the.
stuff was. Sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I was gonna say, like, when we touched on the other people who have attempted or attempt to do what you do at the level you do, I'm sure the lack of humility has ended a lot of those
Yeah,
opportunities as well.
I've seen people get fired. I've never been fired, but yeah, I've watched the fires start where I'm like, oh no, don't say that, when I'm seeing somebody else on stage who's just about to say something to end their job or, screw up in some way. Yeah, humility is a big one. And uh, I've seen a lot of it happen from just like miscommunications over emails. It's a high stress field, as we were talking about stressors earlier. But, there's all these different managers and things are dealing with their own fires that they have to deal with. And then if you as a band member come in and start barking about something to them in the wrong way, you're going to set them off and talk yourself out of a job. So, yeah, the benefit of the doubt is another important lesson, I think.
Yeah.
Or at
Well,
least
that's
giving time.
yeah. Well, I mean, that's a huge part of what I aim to do with this podcast as well. Like, because our the negative side of the ego, if you will, like what you think of yourself, and like I always say that the ego is a great thing because that's your drive to do what you want to do, and it pushes you towards some aspirations. But if you
Yeah.
start to, if it becomes unmanaged, and if you don't understand the flip side of it, which is that you're probably not as good as you think, you're probably not as
Yeah.
cool or liked as you think.
You're not
it,
as irreplaceable as you think, that's for sure. Yeah.
yeah, and you can have great musicians who come into positions similar as yours, and they think they're the shit, and they think they're the biggest, most intelligent person on stage, and they know how to do it. And maybe they do, but it's also about understanding the hierarchy of things. Like, this is not your thing to be, arranging. Like, you need to
Mhm.
understand whose operation it is. And, who knows, maybe if you shut your mouth and listened and observed, maybe you could learn something. And then 2 years later, you realize, thank God I didn't say anything, because it would have been very much out of line.
Exactly, yeah. Or even just a night of calmness.
Sleep.
I definitely or sleep. In my younger years, I definitely talked myself right out of I had a church gig at the time, a steady on Sundays, which was nice. They paid decent, and it always seemed to work between tours. So it was a nice in town. And I came back from a tour on my high horse. It was a good tour, and was doing this church gig, which was early 6 a.m., 7 a.m. They have these in LA. It's like these mega churches, and they hire bands, and there's production elements and lights and big budgets and big to dos. And I guess I had misunderstood some changes in the rules about where to park. So I parked in the wrong place unknowingly. Um, an innocuous thing. Um, Somebody came in, like in between the breaks and the services, and tore my head off about parking there. And what I should have done was just been like, okay, and stayed calm and just moved my car and moved on. Just taken the lashing from them and been like, okay, well, they're upset for reasons I don't understand, but I'll just let that pass. That's not what happened. I let them have it. And then I went home and I emailed the pastor, and I let him have it too. Big mistake. And I wish I hadn't, but amor fati, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
so as a consequence of that, I was not allowed to play. I was not hired back there, despite the music director wanting me to play there. He kept asking the pastor if he could have me come back and play, and the pastor was like, "No way." um, so I ended up actually doing a bunch of like tracks for them over the years, music production, because they'd let me work that way. Sending, I wasn't on site then. I was just
As long
there
as he
via
doesn't bring his
Dropbox.
car, then we're fine.
That's right.
Right.
Yeah. So I was still doing like orchestrations and arrangements, but yeah, if I had just shut my mouth and like let it cool for 6 hours, it all would have been fine. So that was a sharp lesson in humility for sure. So
Yeah. And it's
many
again,
years
like,
passed.
yeah, and who knows, like, I don't know what your situation was. Maybe it couldn't have been overcome by a good night of sleep or good nutrition or exercise. Like, maybe that stuff could have accumulated to the point where you didn't, need to go over. I'm just trying to make the point of everything sort of pulling into
Yeah.
who and what we are and why stuff happens.
Well, I was fresh off a tour, so I was probably I was still heated and stressed from that. So yeah, if I had
Yeah,
if I had slept and cooled it,
yeah, yeah,
ate a better breakfast.
yeah.
So
And again, like what I'm beginning to understand by from talking with people on this podcast is that it's yes, it's the competence finding the luck and like competence finding the opportunity,
mhm.
which gives you a chance to do something. But it's becoming very clear to me that it's the social aspect that kind of secures things, like locks them in place, because based on a lot of the stories of hearing how people came across a project was it, you could call it luck, but yeah, opportunity finding you had the skill to execute, but then it's just about getting along with the people, and once you get
Totally.
along with them and you have good chemistry, then it kind of becomes locked in place. And
Social connection.
I very much um see that it's not the you don't have to be the best composer in the world. You don't need to be the best at what you do, but obviously you need to be good enough to execute, but then just find the right people in the right place and maybe you can actually build a career with that. It's becoming very evident to me that that is the
Yeah.
case. You don't have to be the best of the best, but
You don't. Nope. You just you it's definitely all, at least in my experience, it's been all who I know, um, in so many ways. And yeah, people hire who they know and who they like. Not they don't want to take chances on strangers, no matter how amazing you are. That's been my experience.
yeah,
They want to work with who's familiar, who's comfortable. They would pick that over um, prowess in a lot of ways, I'd say.
yeah,
And I could draw a board of a spider web of all my connections that have led to every gig, and which person refed me for this, and I went to this thing where met this guy and we got along, and then he referred me to this thing, and that's how I got that gig 1,000 times over. So, um, especially like I tour. I don't tour much at all anymore. But when I was touring all the time, it's buses and green rooms, and most of the time you're not playing. I'm sure you've heard that a million times. Um, but yeah, you're mostly just hanging around with these people. And boy, I've been on tours where yeah, somebody's just a problem, or there's a bad attitude permeating things, and it's so destructive and toxic. Um, and in my past, I've been party to that, and it's just no good. It doesn't help anything. So yeah, good
yeah,
people, good attitudes, good hang.
yeah. And what you said about knowing what to expect, that's huge, because if you're getting into a new project and there's a lot of effort, a lot of money, a lot of time involved, you want to know what you're going to get. Like
Yeah,
managing expectations is huge, because like you said, you can have a new person who is incredibly skilled and talented, but maybe if you don't know how they manage themselves, how they manage their time, are they going to show up?
yeah,
All these things, they can, you know, make a project completely bomb. So you need to know that who they are. You need to know their character. You need to know how they're operating. So that's a massive thing, and something worth thinking about. Like if you are trying to build a network and trying to get to know people, you need to find ways to tell them who you are and what they can expect.
yeah.
Which is in part what I try and do with this podcast, because it's beneficial for me to, like, you can just come and watch this and get to know me. You don't have to actually know me
Right.
in person, which is a part of, like, from a more strategic perspective. Like, I do this podcast out of curiosity and love, but also obviously I'm hoping that it gives me some work in the future. And if you want to get to know me, this is one of the ways you can do that. So obviously there's many ways of doing that. You can do YouTube videos, etc. But it's worth thinking about.
For sure.
Is it, by the way, regarding your tattoo, what was it's not a windmill, but it's, what do you call those?
It is a windmill. Let me I'll get the toy here. So it's this windmill. I just held that windmill up to the mic as if that was the right thing to do. So this is my grandfather's toy. He's from Kansas. Grew up much more rural than I did, and this was on the shelf for the last, my entire life. And then he gave it to me, and to me, it's an embodiment of a lot of things about him. So I stuck it on my arm, because he's been given a raw deal by. Well, I shouldn't say a raw deal. He's had a lot of hardships in his life, and he's persisted. So to me, he's the embodiment of amor fati. So yeah, that's why I have that there. It's part of my stoic dyad. I have another side here that's a little more rambunctious. This is Memento Mori, and it's Van Gogh's self-portrait. So this one, yeah.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, a little bit of steadiness and a little bit of carpe diem there. So
nice, cool. If we
that's the windmill.
Yeah, no, that's very cool. So you said you came to LA from Oregon. Were you born in Oregon? Born and raised, or?
Yep, born and raised in a small town, Kaiser, Oregon. And went to school in Portland, which is like Oregon's big city. And went there for jazz. When I thought I was going to be an instrumentalist, a pianist, jazz pianist. I was taking private lessons from like the top guy in Portland, Randy Porter, amazing pianist. And I remember at some point it became clear to me that so I'm taking lessons from like the guy he's the best player in town. He's got all the best gigs in town, and he has to teach all day. All day, every day. And he didn't have the nicest house and everything, and just amazing, ridiculous player. And I was like, I'm never ever going to be better than him at this jazz thing, at this, at playing piano. And so that was part of my brain shift to like, this can't be the way. The other aspect was, so I was going to college for jazz there, Mount Hood Community College. I found a Juno 60 in the closet of the band room at Mount Hood Community College, and I promptly took it home. Yeah, it's a good closet. Yeah.
Did anybody notice?
Let's see. Oh, actually, no. The band teacher asked if I could program an organ sound on it, and so I took it home because I had never seen anything like this before, and I had a Korg Triton, but I had never seen like an analog synth. So I took it to my apartment, and then I just never took it back.
What you're meaning to say? It got lost somewhere.
It got lost. Yeah, I sold it about 15 years later. But yeah, it totally got lost, and I fell in love with that thing so hard. I had never, the things I had before, Korg Romplers, like the Korg O1W, Korg Triton. Those are what I was used to, and the sounds always bugged me. I was like, these can do a lot, but they always sound terrible. They just have the worst sounds. And
it's called innovation. Okay, they are
newer devices. Yeah, so I went back to a device from 1983 called a Juno 60, and I was like, this is pleasing instantly. You know, it's just it has the arpeggiator built in. It has the analog chorus button, and I would play that thing for hours. And there was no manual, and I had no guidance, and I just mucked about until I started to figure stuff out. Um, we were also my roommates and I were also like experimenting with mushrooms and stuff around those times. So I do
Pairs
that.
well with the Juno.
Yeah, I do that on mushrooms sometimes. I connected with this thing is what I'm saying. So um
How
yeah,
old were you at this time?
I was, let's see, 18, 19. Um and yeah, that was like a major shift. I fell in love with that thing and realized that like the Korg Triton keyboard world, it didn't have to be like that. Like keyboards could be cool. Um, and then I discovered, I discovered Radiohead and Nine Inch Nails in those years. And then I was like, oh, keyboards can be really cool when they don't sound like keyboards. Um, you know, keyboards. So that was my breakaway from piano, instrumental, I'd say, and the start of a long love affair with synthesizers that still continues to this day and is very much a piece of everything I do. So, um, yeah, I completed my stuff in Portland, and then I moved down to LA. Went to Musicians Institute for um, for 3 terms, and then there was a poster on the wall, an audition for a guy named Van Hunt, who was a neo soul guy, um, who he still he has a following, but he doesn't really like make many records. But he had a big records back then for a period, and so I auditioned. This was another like fake it till you make it thing, like my other things, where it said like, "Do you like Parliament Funkadelic and play keyboards? Like, come audition." And I had never listened to Parliament Funkadelic except for Flashlight. That was the only one I knew. So I quickly like got all their albums and just went full in, like all the 70s albums. Um, did the audition, and I remember after the audition, Van said, "You're the only guy who played the part, um, like the horn parts, played the keyboard parts." And um, so then I toured with him until he lost his record deal, um, quickly. But his manager was Randy Jackson of American Idol fame. Um, which ironically is not how I got into the American Idol camp years later. But so Randy Jackson knew me from that Van Hunt gig, and then uh, the Van Hunt gig fell apart. I went back to school because I was like, I don't know what to do. So I went back to MI for a term to try and continue the commercial music studies. And then Randy called me up a couple months later and said, "Hey, we're doing auditions for Mariah Carey, and I want you to come audition." So I did, and I got it. I got the call right in the middle of a rehearsal at MI, and they said,
Which you
"You
took
got,"
promptly.
which I took. Yeah, they. I remember I was with. Oh, I can't remember the names of those people, but I feel a little bit bad. But yeah, I was like, I gotta go, guys. I gotta leave.
I'm
Packed
sure
up my
they
stuff and left.
understood and
They
appreciated.
understood. Yeah,
Oh.
they understood in a way. So because they were like, "You're leaving for New York in 2 days. You got to learn all these songs, and you're going to be in New York for 2 weeks, and we're doing Saturday Night Live, The View, the BET Awards. You're doing all these things." So it was just like, okay, well, forget school. I'm done. And after, yeah, that was a good long couple years with Mariah that bloomed into the rest of my career. So that was my college journey
And is
from Oregon.
the was it musical institute or what was
Musicians
the
Institute.
musician? So is that
Yeah.
kind of like a specialized school conservatory kind of thing, or
No, it's not a conservatory.
no?
It's like a Berkeley-ish, Berkeley-esque. It's not as it's not as good as Berkeley and not as involved and as big. Um, but it's definitely focused on commercial slash popular music. So I joined. They had a bachelor's degree program for Keyboard Institute of Technology, and so there was synthesis classes and theory classes and like band classes, cover band type stuff where you'd they'd tell you to learn a song, and that's where I learned how to like play parts and stuff. But
if
yeah,
you
there
look
was
back on their experience, did you did it give you something that helped you do what you do today?
yes.
And
Uh
what was that?
there was a couple things. The classes were mostly not good. um when I was there. I was above where they were because I had already done 3 years of music in Oregon. Um, so like I had maxed out on like the theory classes, um, tested out of a bunch of stuff. So that aspect, as far as like the education, was not what I got out of that school. I got the network. That was the biggest thing I got out of that school. There was the auditions that were on the wall. I would have never seen those if I hadn't been around for that. But also when I got to MI, I signed up for like every band I could, just bands playing around town. And we'd play every dumpy gig in town, the Roxy, the I can't remember any of the venues. They're probably all gone now. But I just got a ton of experience like playing gigs in LA and doing that thing and playing for different genres and artists. I signed up for, I don't know, 8 to 12 different bands. No pay. These are just like, hey, we need a keyboardist, just like trying to get out there. And another thing I got from MI was there was an advanced synthesis class because I skipped through the basic ones. Alessandro Cortini was teaching that class, kind of on his off time in between Nine Inch Nails tours. Um, so he'd like missed a bunch of dates because he'd be gone and stuff like that. But there wasn't really like a curriculum. He just brought in his Euro rack, and we just mess around with it, and I got a lot out of that. Um, Eventually, everybody else in the class like dropped out except for me and like two other guys. So it was just yeah,
Dedication.
it was dedication because we were just I was just boggled and obsessed with like what is this strange device? This is not like any keyboard I've encountered. First of all, it doesn't have a keyboard. Um, so yeah, Cortini we'd play with the modular and he'd tell stories, which was great. And he told me about records that like artists that I'd listened to. Alvin Noto was one of those that I would have never come across if he hadn't just told me about it. Yeah, lots of like uh, electronic music artists, Zubotnik, um, that kind of stuff. Um, and then the Mariah audition. So there was one lessons thing. You had to take private lessons as part of your curriculum. Um, and so one of my private lessons teachers, we didn't work on music the entire term that I was there. He would just tell me industry stories and we'd talk and chat, and it was the best thing ever. His name was Henry Brewer. And that was more valuable than any like advanced jazz harmony whatever class. He would just tell me industry stories and he'd talk to me about relating to people. um, he kept me curious. Also, when I got the Mariah audition, I came and told him, and he was like, okay, well, play what you're going to play for them. And we had to play some Mariah songs, and they were very simple parts on some of these. um, So I sat down to play it. dun, 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 like super simple. Dun, 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 dun. And then you do that for, 3.5 minutes. Um, so in my head, I was like, oh yeah, this is cake. I got this. And he stopped me like 2 seconds in. He was like, no, play it again. So I
Well,
tried again. Um, and he was like, no, you're not feeling it. And again, again, again. Um, so he made me get it until I was like really feeling and understanding this song because my like young, youthful idiot brain was just like, this is super simple. How could I not nail this? Um,
just
and
play the
he
notes.
really, yeah, just play the notes. Just play the notes. And he really forced me to dig into that. And I think that's what helped get me the gig was that mental difference. So that's what
Did
I
he
got out of MI. Yeah.
Nice. Did he give you sort of like cues about what the song was about, or what
Yep.
sort of a shift did you
We talked
need?
about the lyrics. We talked about relaxing into the tempo and like the precision and feel of where those those quarter notes and eighth notes land. Um, not like MIDI quantized tight, but like listening to the record and seeing where it was laid back ever so. And yeah, it was a feel thing for sure. So interpretation and feel, I think, would be what he changed.
Yeah. You mentioned playing a lot of gigs during that time. Obviously, that gave you a lot of practical experience in terms of that. But have you have you ever had stage fright? And if so,
Hmm.
what did that time help you sort of get past that? Or if it was some other time or something else, what helped you figure that
Let's
out?
see. I've performed a lot throughout my life. I mean, even starting when I was like 6 or 7 in like church musical productions as a kid. um, so there was some of that. And also, my parents are both music teachers, retired, but I was around music performance in some aspect probably my entire childhood. Um, so that probably helped. And then I played in like the worship team at church. We did a lot of church as kids. um, uh, so I was on stage a lot already, and then after that in college, I was playing around town with a jam band and doing jazz casuals. Um, but yeah, playing in LA was definitely different than playing in Oregon. And also the rigmarole of being like shoved on stage at uh, at like the whiskey, and you got like 1 minute to set up and deal with this sound guy that hates you and hates your band. And this DI is broken, like those aspects. I definitely got a lot of experience playing around town with those bands, just dealing with like the garbage of handling live music. Yeah, finding parking, load in, uh yeah, getting like just getting plugged in and being efficient, and playing for crowds that don't care about you, or playing with terrible sound, playing when you can't hear yourself, where I just had to like, okay, well, I know he's getting the signal and I know the songs, so I just have to imagine what I sound like.
That one is
um
super tough. Like for
that's
I'm not a
tough.
live player, but I mean I've done gigs and that was really the thing that kind of I mean maybe one day I'm gonna perform live if there's any any opportunity that makes sense. But that was a tough one for me because I am so reactive to
Oh yeah,
to the loop of what I'm hearing. And to
me
me,
too,
like,
man.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's yeah, and it's like
it's hard.
that's that's like I need that to be connected to the music. And if I don't hear it, or if I hear like a PA mono PA, you know, shooting into a, you know, concrete space
Oh man,
somewhere, it's like I'm so disconnected from that.
I feel
Did
you.
you find like what helped with that?
I mean, it's still hard. It's hard every time that happens, but I've learned, and I learned over the years that it's just have to persist. You can't be like, wait, wait, wait. We have to get the sound right. Like, no, you got to drive through. I'm definitely a reactive player in so many ways with composition and with synthesizers. Yeah, I'm reacting to it coming back. And that's why, like with those romplers that I had earlier, like if it's a bad sound, I just cannot. I'm not gonna play it the same way. I have to, or even a bad synth preset on like a synth I like or something. I'm just like, oh no. Ugh.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah, it was lessons in humility, right? It's like, this isn't my band. I'm not the artist. Uh, my job is to persist and play this part. So I'm gonna do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You you when you talked about the jazz teacher, the
Mhm.
piano or the
Yeah.
keyboard teacher, you said something that was, I think, pretty profound or super important in the sense that you were paying attention to what you were seeing, like in terms of understanding, like, yes, you are taking piano or keyboard lessons here, but you were also looking around you. What is the teacher doing? Like understanding that, you know, this, paying attention to what they're doing
Yeah.
and knowing that that's not what you wanted to aim for. Is that something like, is that, and this is important because a lot of people, again, you can't really build a career if you don't know what you're aiming for, and if you don't
Purpose.
understand
Yeah.
if you don't understand the components at play, it could be that you're aiming for the wrong thing for many years, which is again touching on being, for example, an instrumentalist versus being a, let's say, a creative composer or a songwriter or whatever.
Yeah.
Is that like a innate skill that you've always had, or is it something you developed, or how did you think that sort of came about? Maybe through
Oh
the
boy.
experiences of your life. Like what shaped you to be sort of observant in that way, or analytical?
Mm. Analytical. Yeah, I don't want to give myself any credit. I don't feel like I'm always super observant, but yeah, I picked it up, Um yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. I'm sure you've heard it, like you have to be careful who you take advice from, or consider who is giving you advice. Like, do you want is the person giving that advice, like, do you value what they are saying and doing? And I don't Randy, who's the pianist, I love him to death. I respect him, and he was a mentor. He's just a fantastic person. But yeah, I definitely looked around at what he was doing to for his career and his version of success, and it's not I figured out that that's not what I wanted. Um so yeah, I wouldn't say I'm particularly observant, but yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, you still
I still
paid
yeah.
attention. Yeah.
Still paid attention to it. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um
that's I think that's a great piece of advice too. Like it's often many people say that if you want to, you know, find somebody whose life looks the way you want to
mm,
have your life be, and then look at the things that they do. That's super important because it isn't by chance. Not to say that they didn't have luck or all kinds of other advantages that you don't have access to, but still, you know, find somebody who leads a life that you want to have, or you could have obviously multiple people, because maybe somebody has a personal life that you would want to have, and maybe another person has a professional life that you would want to have, and maybe
Mm.
somebody has like a state of health that you'd want to see. So maybe, look at what they're doing and learn from each, and try and emulate that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
take the
yeah,
little pieces.
yeah. Even
Um,
when it seems like it doesn't make sense, because there's a lot to be learned just through doing, and then you begin to see why certain things work and certain things don't.
yeah, definitely. One caveat to that I'll give is sometimes there's been periods where I've tried to model after certain people too much, and then yeah, it was taking away from my potential, I guess. Yeah, like, oh, I want to be like this person I idolize, and then learning that my life and my path is has to be my own. So, but
Yeah.
yes, certainly, yeah, looking around and seeing what kind of life you want to build, and how to go about it. That definitely moving away from like jazz and like more cerebral instrumental music. I was observing that the songs and music that I would scream to my dashboard as I'm like driving around Oregon. Um, I was working construction in summers, and yeah, just blasting like, rock music, pop music. I was realizing that was speaking to me. I wasn't, like Freddie Hubbard
You
or
going
Wayne
to
Shorter.
just now that it came back. It came back. We
Oh,
lost
okay,
just for a second audio.
sorry. The guys I was supposed to listen to in jazz college and stuff, those weren't the ones that I was going like, oh, this is so good. Like, and they're amazing, they're legendary. But it was like, what's the stuff that I'm like blasting when I'm driving home from a friend's house or something? It was pop music or rock music or uh like scores, like that kind of stuff that spoke to me. And it still does to me. That's the kind of music I'm in. It's like I'm in the pop music world, and I love scoring stuff as well, and if I can like try and meld those together somehow, I love that. And I love EDM music too. It's like all those things. Those are the ones that speak to me, not giant steps. Um, so yeah, I hung up my jazz hat um, for the observing my teacher and also observing myself and my emotional reaction. Like what was it? It was Hans Zimmer's The Last Samurai soundtrack. That's like 2002 or something like that. Man, I would blast that thing. And it's so simple, it's these big simple chords, diatonic, but like the emotion behind them in some of the sections of that soundtrack it would just light me up. So like that sound and then all the pop music and stuff I liked. Those were the things that spoke to me. So
Yeah.
I think that's when I said to hell with jazz. So.
No, and
Not
that's
not against anybody who likes jazz, or loves jazz. I like
yeah,
jazz, but
yeah,
it's not my path. So
yeah. And that's also a good example of, like, sometimes people ask me what they're supposed to be doing and is this the right thing, and I just, like, you have to be honest with yourself in terms of what you like and what you don't. A lot of people have, especially in music, there can be a lot of, like, people can be very concerned about what they should be liking or shouldn't be liking. It's a very, like, I don't, maybe I can't come up with a word for that. Maybe you know what I'm
we're
talking
always
about.
parsing ourselves or criticizing ourselves.
Well,
Is that what
that's
you're saying?
also, but like music has very strong like social status elements as well, like people,
Yes.
and also intellectual components when it comes to musicians, because they think they need to like music that is complex and convoluted and
Yeah.
intellectually stimulating or
Oh
complex.
yeah. I've
But a lot of
spent decades listening to music I thought I was supposed to like.
same thing, same
Yeah,
thing, and
right?
and and all the time you're just fighting this, like,
Fighting it.
emotional dissonance. You're like,
Uh-huh.
I don't feel it. You know?
Nope.
Yep.
Yeah.
I know it's very skillfully done, but I don't care for this kind of
I
music.
don't.
So yeah. So I always say
Absolutely.
like, stay true to your emotions and do the thing you want to do. Like that's the only way you're gonna be putting enough effort into this and enough trouble. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's just honesty with yourself and are you gonna have a life where you play something you really don't like and maybe see greater success, or would you rather have some success and do the thing you want to do? It's
Mhm.
I don't know. I can't make the choice for for other people, but
Everybody's
it's
gotta
really
make their choices.
yeah. You
I, go ahead.
No, I was going to touch on when you said that you emulated some people, and maybe in hindsight you realized you didn't you didn't want the same things as
Mhm.
they had, but I also think there's an important lesson there because it's impossible to know something until you live it. Like you emulated these people and you sort of went beyond your threshold of what you found to be valid about that path, but
Mm.
you don't find that line until you cross it. Like it's
Right.
sometimes it's very difficult to theorize about, okay, I'm going to take this component from there and this from there. Sometimes you have to live it, and then you're going to go beyond what you want to incorporate for yourself, and you just have to cross boundaries a lot of the time, which is what I love to do, because unless you cross it, you don't really know where it is.
Mm. Certainly. Yeah. I had to step into the room several steps before I, could look around and be like, "Okay, that's not for me."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned your parents were music teachers.
Yes,
So
my father was middle school band teacher and my mother's grade school music teacher, so
okay. So you were probably very encouraged always to.
I
Were you sort
was.
of pushed into music, or was it something you innately wanted to do?
Funny, I was pushed, but, I was having this discussion with my wife about, our son, Jack, who's 6. We've started him on piano lessons, 'cause, that's music's part of our life, so, we wanna start him on that, and, of course, he doesn't wanna do it, which at 6, I didn't either, so, my parents kept me up with piano lessons, and, I remember that I just did it because I had to for until I was about 12 or 13. That's when I remember then there was an aha moment where I started playing for myself, and then the self-drive started. But, I think about, like, well, what if I had quit any time from age 6 to 12, which, is when most people quit piano lessons or whatever if they start for a little bit. Um, and thank goodness they stuck me through it even when I didn't wanna do it, It's kinda funny, but, of course, I can say that having a career in this, but, if I hadn't, then maybe I wouldn't be reflecting on being forced to do something so fondly. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, there was a point where I, started, there was a rock and roll classics book or something, and I started playing it for myself and enjoying it for myself and staying up late and playing it for myself. And that was the shift into like, oh well, now I want to do this. So um, I was certainly surrounded by music um, with my parents, but yeah.
Yeah. I think that I'm not at that phase yet, obviously, but I think as a parent, you're probably trying to y- try and find the right thing, like make the right call and do it perfectly. But maybe it's like maybe it's more important that it's about teaching principles. Like you're not trying to find maybe the perfect instrument or hobby for your kid, but
Mm,
rather teach them y-
persistence.
yes, and working and learning and discipline and focus and all kinds of things. And You know,
Yeah.
I mean, I would presume they let you know at some point if they because like I was in a choir for 9 years. Like I started when I was 6, and
Oh,
then sang through all the different voices until I got to the bass. And
nice. I
and
knew you were a bass.
yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much I can go pretty low. But it's yeah, I didn't love it. I sometimes we sang certain music that was fantastic, and I loved
Mhm.
that. But the social aspect of it, a lot of the time, there was some bullying there. Not for me
Ah,
directly, but like
uh-huh.
the social landscape was a bit like tedious and at times kind of even dark, and so it wasn't always like that. A lot of the time, it was a lot of fun, but that was definitely pretty heavy. And but I mean, now looking back in hindsight, I wouldn't trade that for anything because that taught me harmony in a way that I probably could have
Mm,
never taught to myself, because
right.
you sing all the same songs throughout all the years, but in different voices like soprano, alto,
Oh,
tenor, bass.
right.
So you
You're
learn
getting all
all
the
of it.
positions. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of it was, counterpoint, and we sang a lot of Bach and or
Oh,
Bach. I
okay.
don't know how you pronounce it in
Great.
the in the
Yeah.
US, but
No, that's good.
yeah, but
I
it
mean,
was
contrapuntal stuff, that's awesome. Like the choirs I was in, we did not sing uh cool stuff like that. It was hokey stuff. So,
yeah, yeah, it's a bit different,
yeah, that's
the
great.
American gospel style, but
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, so it's it's i- it's as a parent probably very difficult to know what the right call is. You make
Mm,
your best judgment, and then you try and focus on the lessons they can abstract and put into anything that they do in life, and then again, stay honest to themselves. And because maybe they're going to play piano for X amount of years and then realize they love drums or something. And
right.
that's a lesson you can only learn by going through
Going through it,
the
right.
first thing.
Just
But
like
yeah,
the emulating somebody too hard.
yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
got to go through it.
yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And
I
that,
was gonna ask. Sorry.
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was listening to your albums as I was familiarizing myself with you more thoroughly the other day. Lifting weights, listening to Markus. Were you singing on some of those things?
It
I think
depends on what you were listening to.
I think it was
So it,
the sci-fi one. I think that was more female voices, but
oh yeah, if it's the orchestral stuff, that's all sample libraries. So
okay,
I've done singing for more like it's more like not songwriting stuff, but clearly vocal, like lyric based
okay,
stuff. But all the orchestral cinematic stuff is just sample libraries.
gotcha. I wondered if maybe you had snuck a few bass ticks in there or something.
Uh, to be honest, like I don't probably have a huge drive to do that. Like for
Ah,
me, it's more about just composing the music and finding the right sound. I don't have a huge. I'd say more in the songwriting front. I have an urge to sing, but in terms of if I were to just lay down some choir bass lines or something,
not motivated for
there's
that.
probably a library that does it better
Does it?
than
Yeah, it's all mic'd
or
up already.
yeah,
Yeah.
less work definitely.
Uh-huh.
So
For
yeah.
sure. I mean, I do the same thing. I have a Hammond organ back there, vintage. And most of the time I'm like, this plugin is
Mhm.
what serves the purpose. I'm not going to mic up the Leslie. Forget it. I have the real deal that I've spent thousands of dollars on. I love playing it, but, middle of a session, it's like, nope,
Yep.
BB3 will be fine.
Yep. That's
Yeah.
that's my entire workflow. I mean, everything I have is on a desk. Like this is a standing desk. I usually stand when I'm working.
Mm,
You can take it up and down, but like
nice.
everything is on this desk. Like all of my musical pieces of equipment, and it's all like I love software because it's gone and it's here like in an instant. So I don't need to set up anything, and
Yeah.
um, it's yeah, I love that.
I agree.
speed.
I'm trying to trim the fat slowly of my hardware obsession, but
I guess this would
new
be a
ones
good.
keep coming in.
Yeah, I can imagine. I guess this is a good moment to get synth nerdy a bit, because I know some people are going to yell at me if I don't
We
ask
don't
you
talk
about.
about synthesizers.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I know this is probably not like a necessarily a question you can answer, but if you can answer it, um, what's your favorite analog synth? If you had
Oh,
to
well, it's
bring it
definitely a
down to one.
sequential for sure. Yeah, I have no shame about saying sequential. Um, let's see. Well, there's my Prophet 6, which they came out with in 2015. I worked on that one. I've worked on the sequential ones since 2013 or so. So there's a little like soul investment in each of theirs. That's why I have them all around here. But yeah, that one's kind of extra special. I use it a lot. I use a lot of plugins. Obviously, I mean some I'm virtual. I don't know 80% of the time, and then I'll start throwing a synth over the top. Just for like a little extra sauce or for a little hands on, and it'll usually be the Prophet 6. I just gravitate towards it for some reason. That and my modular, which is like a sandbox that I cannot recreate in software. Me personally, I know there's VCV rack, I know there's Reaper, I know there's all that stuff, but I just can't. Like this, I've tried to go digital with that stuff and I can't. So this is my like, oh, you can't see it over here, but my peak of a modular over
Spaghetti
there.
spaghetti
Yeah,
monster.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's
nice.
another favorite, just because it surprises. Because I mean, I use so much Contact and Yuhi, Diva, Zebra, Hive. Those are like my virtual workhorses. So when I want a little like something unexpected, that's when I go to the modular. Um, and then let's see, yeah, Prophet 6, and then the Therovox over here, which is I don't know if you can see that, but there's a string there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one's very unique. I love that one. It's like a
So
modern
is it
Owens
kind of like
Martineau.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if this will come through the mic, but nope. It's not plugged in. Okay. But yeah, it's got the string and you have these dampers that you press down for expression. So there's no like set envelopes like a traditional synth. It's a pressure pad that is volume in and out, like a voice or like a violin bowing intensity, like that. And then a fluid string that goes over notes. So there's no keys, and so it's very vocal or very stringy um, in expression. Um, the engine is an analog synth. It's a two oscillator analog synth with a filter, but just having that different interface for you to react with makes something so simple, a saw wave, sound totally different. So that one's really special to me. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that instrument. It's super, super unique.
It's been on you probably saw that on some Strymon stuff too. I whenever they ask for a demo, I like to
Oh,
throw the Therovox on there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You
So,
were gonna point to the right of you.
oh,
You
well,
were
just thinking about synthesizers, I guess. Yeah, I have so I've worked on all these sequentials and I've worked with some other brands. I've worked with Moog Music. There's a Moog one over here, 16 voice, which is their like
nice.
super
Flagship.
mega flagship. And there's a Novation over there that I worked on, and yeah, Prophet 5, Pro 3, all this stuff. But yeah, my favorites, it's funny when I think about that, I end up using what's closest to me most of the time, like physically. Um, and I've thought about this over the years. because you know you can dive into specs and um, all that stuff. But like what has mattered to me is just what I use. Like what's the synth I use, and not like what's the best or what has the most analog filter and stuff. I used to be obsessive about that stuff, like analog purism, and I just realized I don't care. I don't have the time. Like what speaks to me in the same way that we were talking about the music. You know, like I'm supposed to like this. I'm supposed to like this synth or this filter or this oscillator for this cerebral reason, but it just doesn't speak to me. And the ones that do are the ones I use. So, um, of course, we all have different opinions on that, just like our music tastes. So, like
Yeah.
I've got this. I worked on the Moog one. It's a big, beautiful synth. It's like 10 grand US. You know, it's the cream of the crop. It's amazing. It's got all the features, and I just don't use it that much. It looks beautiful, but compared to like my Prophet 6, which I think was when it came out first, they had to raise prices during the pandemic, but it was like 2,600 um, to compare. It doesn't have all the features and all the stuff. It's got less keys. The keys are not nearly as nice as the Moog one. The Moog one has immaculate keys, beautiful woodwork. The Prophet 6 does not. But I use the Prophet 6 all the time because it just like barks the way I want it to. It's got an awesome distortion knob right there that I just so yeah, I've thought about that with my massive of hardware and gear and what comes and what goes and what I end up using, and yeah, just the ones that speak to me and the ones that are, you know, close to my physical proximity are the ones that I bother to record. Otherwise, you know, I do it in the box. So
Yeah. Well, it's super easy to get caught up in all kinds of
oh yeah.
satellite themes that don't really have anything to do with the experience the listener has when they press play and listen to a piece of
Yeah,
music. Like they
not a
don't.
bit.
Most people don't care what you used. I mean, they don't just don't care at all. And even the people who do care about some of that stuff, it's still not even secondary, but like way down in terms of what you used to get,
Yeah.
you know, get those sounds. So it's and that can be tough because I love music technology. I studied music technology. It's like you love that stuff and you can get
I love
lost
music
in it.
technology. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get lost in it and caught up in things that don't have any, well, I shouldn't say any, but the direct significance in terms of whether this will result in a piece of music that people want to listen to or that
Yeah.
you want to, you know, create. Sometimes the relationship can be very removed. So, and I've certainly spent wasted a lot of time and resources getting something that didn't ultimately
Oh man.
serve that purpose. And this is what my setup is all about today. Everything is software. Everything is on this desk and everything can come and go on the screen, which allows me to remove myself from the perpetual, you know, gear lust and all of those
Oh yeah.
things,
It's
which can,
it's real.
yeah, yeah,
I I was thinking when I kind of started to understand that years ago and switch from my like synth fetishism to extreme pragmatism, which is where I've been for the last several years. I've music directed a lot of bands and been in a lot of bands as like the band leader or the music director usually like talks to the artist or is like he's they're the key between like the band hired guns and the artist or the creative director or something, you know, the bridge, because the artists don't usually speak band or don't speak tech gear, whatever, you know, that's not their job, or the creative director or the show director or whatever. You know, like you said, they don't experience it like that. They're just experiencing music. So part of that is translating messages between the two. And I remember early on as a player, when I was first starting to like direct between artist and band, being in the band, learning about the things that they do not care about, as I'm obsessing about specs and tech and trying to, the things that I valued, like, oh, it needs to be a hall verb with this much blah blah blah. They don't care. It's learning that language of what they're feeling and what they're trying to actually find, um, and letting all that music tech and whatever that lives in my head help solve that problem. But yeah, being very pragmatic about it. That was a bit of a journey.
It's definitely one of those. Definitely one of those. Well, I mean, first of all, one of the things that really frustrates me is when you if and when you call yourself an engineer, normal people are gonna look at you and laugh. They're like, "What the? You do music? Like,
That's right.
don't think you're an engineer." It's like
You're not an engineer.
they have no idea about the levels that go into this stuff,
Right.
and like audio theory, go into synthesis, music production. Like, I understand why this image persists, because fair enough, like they know the bedroom producer who is just twiddling knobs in their bedroom,
Yeah.
and there isn't, like, it's very difficult to, first of all, that stereotype exists, and that's granted not very technical probably, and it's possible to make music with very little sort of technical knowledge in terms of discussing it at a sort of an engineering level. It's entirely possible to be sort of quite intuitive and respond to what you're hearing and develop the skills through that. But it's also possible to talk about this stuff at a very, very technical level. Obviously, you can go into the whole designing of these different effects processors and synths, etc., which is far more technical than what I, for example, do. But if you are like let's say a mixing engineer or a music producer at a higher level, then there's a lot of technical stuff that you need to know to make that happen. And it just frustrates me when people, I mean, they have zero chance of understanding that. So they're not going to take you seriously as an engineer compared to, let's say, somebody who designs electronics or bridges or something like
a real engineer. It's also not their job to understand, right?
No.
I mean,
Yep. Yeah. I don't know. I had a second point to this, which I now forgot, but
did I railroad that? Sorry.
I think I did.
Okay.
I did that myself. But yeah, I mean, but on top of that, of understanding the technicalities, now you need to redress the language so that, like you said, you need to communicate that to the people you're collaborating with. And that's a whole different skill set.
A whole different layer. Yeah. I mean, it's tough, and sometimes it's hard to like figure out what that is, I mean, in the like directors to composers with media, that's a whole thing, Sometimes they'll use the wrong words. Well, not the wrong words, but words that you think mean something else, I don't know how many times I've heard like it's too bright or something, and they don't actually mean that it's too bright. They mean that something jumped out too much or something, or it has nothing to do with what you and I would assume is brightness as far as tone. It might be an emotion or something. And also that's the same sense with doing like working on these synths with the actual engineers at Sequential, like the guys that actually do electronics and program like coding, I'm just a musician, so it's funny when I find myself in the position where I'm like, it doesn't, they'll be explaining why it doesn't do a certain thing or why this reacts a certain way, and I'm like, well, why is it doing that? I don't care. Like, can it do this other thing?
So
Yeah.
basically the same exact situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Except I'm the schmuck that time. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, it just edifies the point to me of like, yeah, the point is how you relate to those other people. I mean, it's like the bands we were talking about earlier. Yeah, it's not the other person's job to know how to do what I do or what you do. Like they don't need to know how to dig around in a DAW and route contact and this controller isn't syncing with this whatever tempo grid and blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. It's not their
Yep.
job. Um, and I've learned that slowly over the years, and I learn it a little bit more each year.
Yep. When it comes to the collaborations you've done with all these companies like Sequential and Strymon, I mean, you could pick like one or maybe give some general, I don't know, examples of how those came to be. Maybe choosing one is more reasonable time-wise,
Oh,
but
all the relationships I've had, um, which I love having because we love music technology. I just hit him up uh, years ago, and was just like, all the ones that took were the ones where I was like, I love your stuff. Um, I would like to get to know you guys better. And because I remember early on in school, there's the NAMM show here, and uh, like people were trying to figure out how to get free gear. You know, it's like you're trying to figure out how to get endorsed or whatever. Um, and I remember I got back from a Mariah tour, and I remember I was like, sweet, now I've got a big credit. I'm hot stuff right now. I can go get some free stuff. And uh it did not work. None of that worked. None of that took. All of those fell flat. It's like which, just as well. Like that's how that should have gone is, some keyboardist comes up and he's like, "Hey, I'm important. Give me stuff." That's
it's
not how
like,
it works.
what do you mean you're not sending me this 5 grand piece of
Exactly.
hardware?
So, like with Strymon, uh I just hit him up and I was like, "I love your stuff. Um, I have I have an El Capistan. I made a video with it. This is now there's YouTube, everything of this stuff, but this was early on, and I was like, I play keyboards, and I love this pedal, and I made this video, and then they put it out, and then they sent me another pedal and asked if I'd make demos with keyboards because nobody was making demos with keyboards on Strymons. Um, so it was like a very natural relationship of like, we like you, you like me, let's help each other. Um, and yeah, then we made a video with the Big Sky, which it's funny, those guys, they say that's still like the most watched video they have of like all time. And I know people that know me first from that video,
Hey,
not
you're
from
the
my,
Strymon guy.
yeah, you did the synth thing with the Big Sky. And I bought a Strymon because of you or whatever. And so even Pete at Strymon was like, yeah, like that video. So and that, yeah, it bloomed out of like, I loved the gear and I wanted to do stuff with it. I was never like shilling anything. I I use all that gear, And then Sequential was the same thing. It was 2009, and um I was using um I the band I was in, Van Hunt. It was 2007. That's what it was. Had a Poly Evolver, which was their early synth, and so Van had me play it. I didn't own it because it was expensive synth, and so he made me learn it for the show, and it was a really complicated synth. And after that, I hit up Sequential and was like, "Hey, I've I've used this synth. Love using your stuff. I would love to buy one for myself. Um, I'd love to get to know you guys." And they gave me a break, like on my first buy from them. It was a Profit 08. And we kept up with each other, started going, you know, I'd invite them to shows when I was in town. And that bloomed into friendships and dear friendships. And then they started asking me to like for opinions on things, on some of their upcoming synths. And then they started having me beta test some of the stuff and make presets. I've made, I don't know, like 1,000 presets for sequential factory synths, you know, over the years. Like became part of the trusted team, not because I was like digging for something, but it was a very natural evolution of friendship and mutual love of the instruments. So yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a good starting point. Like, it's you wanna do something that you would wanna naturally do instead of trying to, make some kind of strategic business move happen. It's just do the stuff you want to do, and maybe it resonates with the other party. Trying
It's
to
all natural.
Yeah. I always ask this thing about sort of creative retainment, I guess. So this is my theory of creative people basically keeping the flame alive, keeping the spark alive from their childhood going into adulthood. Like they somehow manage to not let the world crush their creative inspiration. So if you find that to be true in your case, how did you was there a central thing that allowed you to retain that creativity throughout growing up?
Throughout growing up, or throughout like career?
Well, I mean both, but I mean going
okay.
from childhood into adulthood, because usually somewhere in between there
it gets lost.
Yeah, you get crushed by life and you lose
Oh
faith.
man,
Or
I've definitely been crushed by tours and bad business deals and screwed over, and you know, I mean, everybody does in this biz, that have squashed me at times. And yeah, but I've always been able to like come back from it.
in terms of
But,
your childhood, like going from being a kid into moving into adulthood, was that something like, because for a lot of people creativity is sort of the one thing that sustains throughout that whole
I would agree. Yeah, definitely creativity. Because otherwise, yeah, when the realities of it are bleak or, you know, crushing, especially like early on when I wasn't getting paid for anything and was just hustling and trying to play everywhere and do everything. It was love of music for sure that kept everything going. Otherwise, I would have quit eons ago, right? You know, like when when you don't get paid for something, or something goes wrong, something breaks. Love of music, love of the craft is what persists. Play is a big one for me. As I sit here in this room full of things I play on. I know I was ragging on the Moog one a second ago, but I was playing it the other day just for fun, which I hadn't done in a while. And that's happened many times with different things where I'll get into a work mode for a while and be executing and be all biz, and then I'll have some sort of comeback realization of play that helps like kind of remind me why you do all the stuff and you tolerate all the stuff. And it's hard, you know, when everything's so business focused, but like, yeah, I turned it on and I wasn't going to record anything. I wasn't going to, you know, try and make a track or anything. It was just like, just play and fiddle around with the sounds and do some like exploration for your sake. And I do that with the modular all the time too. That I'll make something that goes nowhere. the express purpose of going nowhere. I think that's the important part, because as soon as I try to make it go somewhere, or turn it into a business thing, then it's not as fun anymore in those moments. So keeping the sandbox is important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think play is huge because that's what kind of revivifies
Yeah.
your contract with life. And that's why it's awesome to look at your kids, because they're just, they don't see things from this sort of fixed perspective of what am I gonna, well, it depends on the age, but what am I gonna get
Yeah.
out of this? And just
Yeah.
we have these mega blocks, they're called, that our kid plays with, and he has no, like, he doesn't have a concept of I'm gonna build this thing. He just picks them up and begins to build with them, and he sees like a connection somewhere, and he's just going to plonk it down somewhere. And it's super interesting to look at him, and makes you ask, why do I do certain things, and
Yeah.
what am I
Pure
seeing?
creation, right? He's creating without any boundary between him
Yeah,
and that block.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because there is no like intent beyond. He's not trying
Right.
to build
The angle on it.
like a
Yeah,
house
which
with them, or it's
uh,
just like you just look at him and he's like playing with them, and it's very, very pure.
I've had that with my I've had that with business relationships too. When I try to force musical friendships, through some calculated whatever, those don't usually pan out. It's the homies are the ones that, are like real with each other. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, it
Like
sounds
this,
very,
Marcus. So
yeah. No, it sounds like very cliche, but it it's the truth and the honesty that means something, and
mm,
it's really the one of the main things I can recommend for people. Like, be real, do the things that interest you, and you know, bring it from a place that is true to you. Otherwise,
mm,
it doesn't mean anything to you, and then who cares what it turns into?
yeah.
Yeah. Gonna ask my final two questions here because we're nearing the 3 hour mark here. But I always ask, what is your definition of an artist?
Oh boy.
I know it's a bit of a can be a bit of a tough question, but
This is existential.
it yes, it can be.
um well, somebody who creates for the joy of creating, I guess. Yeah. As we were just saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Like your son. Um, is that you have your son? No, or do you have a daughter?
Yeah, son.
Son. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, playing with the blocks. Yeah,
Yep.
the creating for the joy of bringing something into fruition just for itself, not for business or social gain. Um, to me, that would be an artist. Yeah.
That's super interesting because that's a reoccurring. I think that's the third time somebody
Ah,
says that, but it's wonderful. I think Chris Child, who does music under this Kodomo name, I think he basically used the same words. I think,
okay.
but it's yeah, I love that, and it's like reminder for myself of like to try and center myself into who and what I am and why I do this,
Mm,
because you obviously trying to make this into a career means that you have to think about it from maybe a more cerebral place and try and strategize and you know turn this into money somehow. But
yeah. Well, it's got a bit of irony, I guess, in it. Uh, in that I'm like, if I look at the list of people I've worked for, my living in music is off of people that make, you know, I make money from these people, but I feel like I have my artistry within that. So a lot of this is, commercial music. So It's selling something, you know, it's selling a song, it's selling a product, but I still feel like there's still a piece of creativity within there for me when I'm enjoying it, that is that bringing to fruition feeling of creation. That feels like the artistry within that.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's precisely
yeah.
what I said when we started. It's like you do these, like you play an instrument at a top level. You're playing a very important practical part in all of these things, but like I said, it's clear that you inject creativity into what you do, and it's seeking to do something deeper other than just play notes. you know
Yeah.
Inject some purpose and emotion and meaning into it. And like I said, like watching your demos, the reason why they are so liked isn't that you press the right keys and twiddle the knobs, but there's like clearly, like, you're looking at a process of somebody creating, and that's why it speaks to people, because that's what they want to do. And when they see you do that, they see themselves do that. They see themselves in that as well, and that's why they're going to buy a big Sky. And that's so
That's good. That's a
yeah.
good. That's a nice way to put it. That's good.
Last question. If you could instantaneously send a message to everybody's smartphone in the world, everybody who has one,
Wow.
it pops up on the front screen of it, and they have to look at it before they open their phone. You can send like a message or whatever you want onto everybody's smartphone. What would you send?
Boy, I mean, that
And you can
doesn't
go
get more
other than
existential than that. Yeah.
other than and also other than promoting your music,
Other
or
than promoting your album.
yeah, it just says
Buy my
peterdyer.com.
stuff. Yeah, peterdyer.net. That's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
I couldn't get .com. It was only .net. So
Oh, is there a Peter Dyer out there
there is a
with a
British
.com?
photographer, I think, but
Oh, well,
it's
luckily
all right.
he's
I can live with
in the
that. I pop
yeah,
up first on the Google search, so I'm okay with it. Yeah.
justifiably so.
Just thanks. Let's see. What would I say?
These can
Boy,
be a bit tough.
I'd
So
freak
you
out
could
a lot of people, but it'd be some form of a memento mori, I guess. Um, my grandfather, I have two dead pocket watches on my shelf, um, from the two sides of my family, and I see them as funny reminders, unintentional funny reminders from my grandfathers that you only have so much time. Um, so yeah, memento mori. Remember, you must die. That'll freak out the teenagers, but yeah, I think that's a valuable sentiment. Whether it's artistry or what you choose to spend your time doing, there's a finite amount. So do something you give a heck about.
yeah. And it's one of those things where, again, you don't want to wait for the trauma to happen before you realize it. It's probably going to be that way, but if
Of
we can,
course,
save a few people from
from
that,
that, yeah,
then that's a worthwhile thing to do, because I certainly woke up to the reality of the situation before I had a heart attack, or multiple heart attacks actually. But
man,
it's because I for years I had those health issues, and I still do. So I knew something was off, and I was like, okay, I don't know where this is going, but you definitely want to try and simulate circumstances, or gain the understanding or the wisdom before it happens.
yeah.
And that kind of reminds me of, like, I don't know if you know Gary Vaynerchuk, who is kind of like a business guy, but he is
Is that
somebody.
Gary V?
Yeah, Gary V.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
somebody somebody was like stopping him on the street, and asking, Gary, please give me 3 inspirational words. And he said, you're gonna die. And
Exactly.
yeah, she was so,
Oh,
shocked
man.
because she was looking for like something bubbly and
Yeah.
sparkly and nice. And then he was like, yep, like if that doesn't motivate you, then
I don't think
know.
it has to be bubbly either.
Mm.
That's what I've learned is, I mean, that's the one I stuck on my other arm. It's the reminder. It doesn't have to be death and destruction from a sad point. It's like, well, if this is it, then yeah, then that's it, you know, and get to it. As opposed to from a point of fear, you know, coming from a point of strength. Back to anti-fragility, right?
Yes, I was gonna say that's the same
Yeah.
concept as what happened with you in terms of the, you know, nobody's coming to save you stuff.
Nobody's
Like
coming.
at first, if you haven't confronted death much, then you know you're going to be afraid of it. But once you spend time with it, you understand it, you begin to acclimate to it, and you acknowledge and accept and confront it, and then it becomes an empowering thing. Obviously, not a joyful thing to think about necessarily, but
Still empowering.
yeah, you know it's true, and good things can come out of that darkness because you know it's coming. So why not spend this time doing something amazing and great?
Yeah.
Cool.
Agreed.
Well, it's been, first of all, it's been a pleasure to get to know you a bit. I've been following you for quite a while, so it's awesome to actually, you know, sit down and talk with you. And
Good to speak with you.
Likewise.
Yeah. I did most of the speaking, so I think you got
Which
to know me
is-
better than I got to know you, but that's all right.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to be.
That's how it's supposed to work on this, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I was enjoying your pirate album. I can't remember the name of it as I was lifting the other day.
Oh yeah,
Enjoying
Dead Reckoning.
Dead Reckoning. That was the one. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Nice.
Well, I'm trying to get this soundtrack done for this video game. So it is, I think, I mean, anything I've done in the past seems very not as, you know, high of a level, but that's the way you always feel, and
that's
you're supposed to,
right?
Yeah, and you're supposed to feel that way.
Of course.
So, but
it's
I
good
haven't
to feel that way.
yes, it's a good thing to look at your past work and think like, it's
better now.
Yeah, it's a good sign. It's a good sign.
Yeah.
But I haven't been putting music out for a while now, so it's about time to get something out this year.
Yeah. Good, man. I noticed a funny thing. The Cloudlifter, which had never been unplugged, I drastically unplugged it to solve our interface issue, and here we are without it. So
there we go.
Maybe you don't need one. Yeah. Maybe it's all fine.
We came full circle.
We came full circle. Yeah, the snake oil here. So yeah.
Nice. Maybe we'll do the next one with the Cloudlifter and
with the Cloudlifter. Yeah, we can compare tones.
Yep. Cool. Well, again, thanks for taking the time to do this, and it was a pleasure to get to know you a bit. And I wish you nothing but the best with all the stuff you've got going, which is a lot.
Markus. You too, man. You too.
Thank you. Cool. Yeah. See you later.
See ya.
Bye bye.